Chapter 459. As soon as he stepped into the lobby, Jun Moxie suddenly felt as if he had entered Tiger Mountain. Dugu Zongheng was sitting on the main seat in front of him. He was draped in a tiger skin cloak. His body was slightly bent over, and he was looking down at Chu Yang from above. His eyes were like an eagle's. He looked very much like a mountain eagle. In fact, he didn't need to disguise himself as long as his hair was slightly adjusted. General Dugu Wudi glared at Old Man Dugu, his hand on the hilt of his sword. His imposing manner was overbearing as he stood majestically in front of Old Man Dugu. Although there were no pockmarks on his face, his expression was that of the head of the 8 great Vajrapani, big pockmark. On both sides, there were 7 burly men lined up in a row. Each of them had the backs of a tiger and waists of a bear. Each and every one of them seemed to be itching for a fight. It was none other than the 8 great Vajras. This scene was too realistic. It was too much of a knockoff. Wasn't he afraid of being sued for infringement? If Dugu Zongheng were to ask, "The Heavenly King covers the Earth Tiger," then Jun Moxie would immediately respond with, "The pagoda subdues the river demon." As for the things that happened after that, such as talking in the middle of the day, no one's face turning red or yellow, and so on, they were even more familiar with each other. However, even if it was a knockoff, it was impossible for it to have the phrase, "The Heavenly King covers the Earth Tiger." No one spoke for a long time. The atmosphere was extremely stifling. All the gazes in the hall were fixed on Da Xiao and Jun Moxie's face. Behind him, Tang Da Xiao, Tang Yuan, and Fatty Tang were already trembling. Their lips were green and their faces were pale. It seemed like they could not hold on any longer. After a long time, Dugu Zongheng bellowed, "Hey! Jun Moxie!" The young Master Jun was still immersed in the memory of the handsome, confident, and resourceful young Master Jun. So, he subconsciously flipped the right side of his robe, and blurted out, "The Pagoda Town." "Ah, old Dugu is well. Pagoda Town. What is this place?" The 9 burly men of the Dugu family were all confused at the same time. "Wu Najuan brat, what are you talking about in our Dugu family's Pagoda Town? What the hell are you talking about?" That Pagoda Town. That's right." Jun Moxie rolled his eyes. "What I meant was that the moment I entered this hall, I could clearly feel your majestic aura. It was like a pagoda that could support the heavens and the earth, and it immediately stunned me." Yes, that's what it means." Dugu Zongheng's face lit up with happiness. He opened his mouth, and wanted to laugh. But, he held it back. Then, he put on a solemn face, and said with a belly full of pent-up desire, "Oh? Am I really that mighty?" That's right. You're really mighty, really mighty." Jun Moxie gave a thumbs up. "You are indeed a good kid. You have a good eye." Dugu Zongheng's laughter was very refreshing. His steel needle-like beard trembled as he said, "Your little mouth is also very sweet." Jun Moxie's face turned black. "Jun Moxie, don't think that you can joke around with just a few good words. Look at what you've done, brat." Great General Dugu Wudi saw that the old man had unexpectedly laughed. He knew that the atmosphere was about to change. So, he hastily roared with a black face. He wanted to remind the old man that this matter wasn't over yet. And, he couldn't let this brat get away with it. "Oh, cough cough cough." Dugu Zongheng coughed twice, and sat upright. "How am I joking around? Don't tell me that you're not mighty enough. What good deed did I do to make you remember it?" "Hee, Uncle Dugu, you're too polite. I've always done good deeds without leaving my name. I've always done good deeds. It's not difficult for people to do good deeds. But, it's difficult to persevere in doing good deeds throughout one's life, just like me." Jun Moxie spoke in a sincere and heartfelt manner. He paced back and forth as he spoke. Then, he found a chair, and sat down on it. That seat happened to be face to face with Dugu Wudi. Dugu Wudi's nose became crooked in anger. I'll fight with anyone who dares to say that our Dugu family's elders and children are troublemakers. This man before me is the real master of troublemakers. We've been here for a long time. But, this guy hasn't done anything. Not only did he sit down, but he's even boasting shamelessly about persevering in doing good deeds every day. He doesn't even blush when he says those words. Those words are more appropriate for an old man like me, the one who asked you to sit down. Stand up for me. Great General Dugu was furious. I, your future father-in-law, haven't even asked you to sit down. But, you've already sat down in such an ostentatious manner. You're going against the heavens. Oh, cough cough cough. I've been wondering why the old man has called me here. Then, I thought about it, and I finally remembered. Ah, I reckon that the Dugu family has made a fortune. So, they're preparing to pay me back the money they owed me a few months ago. Jun Moxie crossed his legs, so, I came here. Alas, the landlord doesn't have any surplus grain these days. Moreover, it's been a long time. So, I shouldn't drag this account any longer. It's almost the end of the year. So, it's a good time to collect the debt. In fact, it's not that much money. It's only 90 million taels. That's not even 10 million. Jun Moxie snapped his fingers as he said that. He then pointed at the maid standing by the door, that beautiful lady over there, I'll have to trouble you to bring a cup of tea. Ah, it was a slip of the tongue. It was a slip of the tongue. It should be 2 cups. He, and my brother here. Look, the weather is too hot. He's sweating profusely. He needs to replenish his water quickly. The maid couldn't help but want to laugh. But, she hastily held it back. What is this? The weather is too hot. It's almost the 12th lunar month, besides, what's with that look in your eyes? Your fat brother is obviously scared. I can see that. General Dugu Wudi was dumbfounded when he heard Jun Moxie's sudden change of topic. Jun Moxie's sudden change of topic left him dumbfounded. Small amount of money. 90 million taels of silver is still considered small amount of money? How many people in the entire Tianxiang Empire can come up with such a small amount of money? However, Great General Dugu could also see that this youngster was clearly threatening him. You'll have to pay me back 90 million taels of silver if you continue to treat me like this. After all, I have an indelible identity as a creditor. Moreover, I'm a creditor who can bankrupt the Dugu family at any time. Dugu Wudi panted a few times. Then, he finally roared, someone come. Bring tea. Bring good tea. Bring a chair for Tang Dashao. He thought for a moment, and then added, I want the largest one you can sit on. Dugu Chung and his brothers had strange expressions on their faces when they heard this. They couldn't help but want to laugh. Ah, fatty. This old man has invited the Jun family's 3rd young master, Jun Moxie. What are you doing here? Dugu Zongheng seemed to have noticed Tang Yuan at this time. So, he glared at him and asked. What he was implying was, I didn't invite you. So, what are you doing here? Jun Moxie couldn't help but praise him. This old man's words are really direct. He's just short of asking me to leave. Tang Yuan thought to himself, you think I want to come here? If the 3rd young master hadn't used money to threaten me, I wouldn't have bothered to come. However, old man Dugu had asked me, and Dashao had just won a big prize. So, I can't be scared at this time. So, I immediately straightened my stomach. Although I was still a little scared, I had already steadied my mind. So, I braced myself and said, this junior and the 3rd young master are very close friends. We haven't seen each other for many days. Today, we finally got to meet again. Moreover, the 3rd young master has been invited by the eldest young master. Fatty was indeed a good friend. He spoke in an unyielding manner. He didn't mention that it was Jun Moxie who had forced him to come. He could tell that the Dugu family was looking for Jun Moxie for some reason. So, he was afraid that Jun Moxie would be at a disadvantage if he were to say something inappropriate. So, he simply shouldered the responsibility. So, that's how it is. You have the spirit of brotherhood. Dugu Zongheng nodded and said, sit. Tang Yuan thanked him. Then, he sat on the oversized chair that had just been moved over. The nervousness he had felt at the beginning had already disappeared. The quality of the chair was pretty good. It was able to withstand the pressure. It only made 2 creaking sounds. Old man Dugu Zongheng stared at Jun Moxie and Tang Yuan. A long time passed. Then, he sighed and said, the 2 famous debauches of the capital are actually 2 pure men. I hadn't expected this. As he spoke, he glanced at his 7 grandsons. He couldn't help but feel greatly disappointed when he saw how each and every one of them looked timid when they met his gaze. Dugu Zongheng had praised Jun Mo and Tang Yuan as real men. It could be said that Jun Mo and Tang Yuan's evaluation wasn't low. After all, his 7 grandsons hadn't received such praise. It must be known that today's meeting had been deliberately arranged. The old man had purposely created such a solemn atmosphere. Coupled with the awe-inspiring aura of a room full of experienced generals, if an ordinary person were here, they would have long been suffocated by this oppressive atmosphere. This was the current fatty. If it had been the Tang Yuan from 4 months ago, he would have probably pissed his pants in fright. However, Jun Moxie had arrived with a relaxed expression on his face. In fact, he was laughing and scolding in a carefree manner. This kind of temperament wasn't something that an ordinary debauchee like Da Shao could possess. Tang Yuan had been somewhat restrained in the beginning. But, he had slowly relaxed. It couldn't be denied that Jun Moxie's influence had played a role in this. But, Tang Yuan had been able to return to normal in this kind of atmosphere. So, it could be said that he was quite capable. However, it would be somewhat arbitrary if old man Dugu believed that his grandsons weren't as good as the 2 of them. His own grandsons, even great General Dugu Wudi, had been taught a lesson by him over the years. So, they were like mice that had seen a cat. So, how would they be able to relax? But, they wouldn't have the slightest stage fright if this gang of troublemakers were to go to another family's house. So, they wouldn't be afraid as long as this old man Dugu wasn't around. After all, the Jun family's residence was a place where those 7 brothers had smashed up Jun Moxie's courtyard. Chapter 460. Today's outbreak, second update. 2 consecutive days of outburst, please double the monthly votes. Dugu Xiaoyi, who had regained her original slender figure, followed behind her. She saw Jun Moxie and stuck out her tongue. Then, she gave him a meaningful look, hinting, be careful. Is that Jun Moxie? Come out and let this old lady have a look. I want to see what kind of hero can make my granddaughter so crazy. The old lady came out and stood in front of Jun Moxie. She looked left and right, looking for the hateful brat who had cheated her granddaughter's heart. Jun Moxie started to sweat. He had always heard people say that the Dugu family was full of troublemakers. It seemed like it wasn't without reason. Such an old madam came out, and she was actually so valiant. Dugu Xiaoyi had grown up in such a family. It wasn't easy for her to grow up like this. It would be difficult for her not to be valiant. He had no choice but to stand up and say, this young one is. Oh, is that Tang Yuan? The old lady asked again. This young one is. Fatty quickly bowed and saluted. The old lady smiled, the new god of wealth of the capital is indeed extraordinary. What? God of wealth of the capital? When did Fatty get such a cool nickname? Jun Mo stared blankly for a moment. He then looked at Fatty Tang with a playful grin. But then again, it wasn't surprising. Fatty was now the leader of the aristocratic hall. He was in the limelight. His net worth was at least 300 million taels. So, the title of God of Wealth wasn't in vain. Da Xiao was cursing inwardly when he saw the old lady waving her hand. You 7 brats should accompany young Master Tang to play. There's nothing for you to do here. Entertain our honored guests well. The heroes and legends rushed forward, and the other 7 people hastily complied. Then, they went forward to pick up Fatty Tang, and walked out. They walked quickly and anxiously as if they were being chased by a dog. They were finally free. You're welcome. Have a seat. The old lady nodded her head and turned around to sit on the armchair. She then asked Duge Zongheng and Duge Zongheng to sit down as well. A group of female soldiers stood behind the old lady. Each and every one of them stared at Da Xiao with the gaze of a mother-in-law looking at her son-in-law. They were very curious as to how this brat, who had such a disreputable reputation, could still have the ability to capture the heart of their daughter. Especially the middle-aged woman on the left of the old lady, who was staring at it intently. Duge Zongheng and Duge Wudi had lost their domineering aura as soon as the old lady had arrived. They had become as quiet as cicadas out of fear. In fact, they didn't even dare to speak loudly. June Moxie, this brat is very good. Very good. He's a very charming young man. The old lady praised. Then, she turned her head towards the crowd and said, You see, this brat's nose is a nose, and his eyes are eyes. He looks very much like a human. The ladies nodded one after another in agreement. June Moxie had black lines on his forehead. What? What kind of words are these? He looks very much like a human. Does this mean that I'm not a human? I only look like a human. Besides, what do you mean by a nose is a nose, and eyes are eyes? How can I see a nose if I don't have a nose and ears? Are you praising me or insulting me? June brat, you've already done this kind of thing. So, I want to know what you're planning to do with my Xiao Yi. The old lady was very direct. She didn't even bother with greetings. Instead, she asked a very sharp and direct question that left no room for hesitation or evasion. What kind of arrangements? June Moxie was stunned. The old lady's words are very strange. I really don't know what I've done. I've attracted the old lady's questioning. So, I asked the old lady to clarify what I've done. Humph. You look so handsome, but your mouth is so crafty and mischievous. You instigated Xiao Yi to walk out in front of everyone with a big belly. You know the consequences of that, don't you? The old lady's face was calm, and her tone was quite unfriendly. Yes, Miss Dugu was indeed thoughtless in this matter. But, I didn't instigate her. I didn't even think about it. Heavens! June Moxie hastily clarified. The old lady didn't wait for Da Xiao to finish speaking. She interrupted him, I also believe that you wouldn't cause such trouble. But, it doesn't matter whether you instigated her or not. In any case, the girl's original intention was for you. You won't deny this, right? June Moxie nodded helplessly. He couldn't deny this point even if he wanted to. Da Xiao had lived 2 lives. He had a clear conscience. So, he would be erasing his conscience if he denied it this time. And, he would have a very guilty conscience. This matter has caused great damage to the Dugu family's reputation. Don't you know this? The old lady was aggressive as she continued to ask questions. Yes. But, this isn't a big deal for the Dugu family, is it? June Moxie frowned slightly. It seemed that the Dugu family's reputation had always been synonymous with toughness. They didn't have much of a reputation to speak of. Moreover, the little girl's methods could be seen through at a glance. I didn't say that I wouldn't marry her. So, is there a need to be so serious? But, this matter has a great impact on Xiao Yi's reputation. You should know this in your heart, right? The old lady also snorted. She couldn't help but get angry when she saw that this kid didn't want to continue. It really has a great impact. June Moxie nodded frankly. Then, what do you plan to do? The old lady turned a corner and came back. To be honest, I don't have a specific plan for the time being. June Moxie told the truth. You don't have a plan? The old lady suddenly stood up. Don't tell me that you want to deny it after eating it all. How do I want to deny it after eating it all? I didn't eat it at all. How can I say that I have eaten it all? June Moxie felt that he was wronged to death. Why do they say that I'm like Chin Shimmy? Besides, the little lass almost played me to death that day. If it wasn't for the fact that the little lass was infatuated with me and didn't care about the consequences, would I, your young master, be willing to go around in circles with you? Naturally, I wouldn't be as humble as I am now. Why is it that when I soften a little, all of you start to bully me? Since it has come to this old lady might as well tell you clearly. Xiao Yi has set her mind on you. She is infatuated with you. You can't let her down. Otherwise, this old lady will be the first to not let you go. The old lady slowly said. Her eyes looked at June Moxie's eyes. Are you worried about Guan Qinghan? June Moxie frowned and said, the old lady can rest assured. If I really intend to accept, then I won't let Guan Qinghan down. I won't let Xiao Yi down either. I naturally have my own plan. Your plan? Ha! It's normal for a man to have 3 wives and 4 concubines. But, there needs to be a title for it. The old lady smiled. She stared at June Moxie intently and said, regardless of the man's family, there must be a head of the family. And, the wife is the head of the family. If there is no head of the family, and everyone wants to fight for favor, won't it be a mess? What should you do? So, I called you here today because I want to ask you, in your heart, is that girl Xiao Yi your wife? A stable harem makes the world at peace. Although this saying applies to emperors, it also applies to ordinary families. A harmonious family is the way to progress. The old lady slowly looked at June Moxie. This kind of thing must be decided as soon as possible. Otherwise, a long night will bring many dreams. It'll be bad if we give people hope. What do you mean, the old lady? June Moxie raised his eyebrows. The Dugu family only has one precious girl. So, this old lady will never allow her to be a concubine. The Dugu family can't afford to lose face like this. Xiao Yi must get married. But, she must be the first wife of the June family. The old lady snorted. The first wife? June Moxie couldn't help but laugh. The old lady is quite good at joking. But, this joke isn't funny, joking. Don't tell me that you want my Xiao Yi to be your concubine. This is outrageous. The old lady glared at him. She slammed her walking stick on the ground. Dugu Xiaoyi panicked. She was afraid that her grandmother would fall out with her sweetheart. So, she hugged the old lady's arm and shook it. Then, she acted like a spoiled child, grandmother. At the same time, she looked at June Moxie with pleading eyes. It was obvious that she was begging him not to go against her grandmother. If they had a falling out, then her beautiful marriage would be ruined in vain. I've spent a lot of effort to bring about such a good situation between the two families. June Moxie was about to explode. But, he was forcibly suppressed by Dugu Xiaoyi's glare. June Moxie took 2 deep breaths as he thought of the little girl's deep affection for him. He tried to restrain his anger. But, his face had become unprecedentedly serious. The old lady Dugu has spoken openly. So, I'll make this matter clear. June Moxie's eyes suddenly became as sharp as a sword. They slowly swept over everyone present. And, everyone felt stifled in their hearts. In my opinion, marriage is my business. It's my business. It's my business. It's my life's most important matter. Who I want to spend the rest of my life with. So, I have to make a good choice. And, I'll have to make a good choice if I'm not careful. Then, I'll have to make a good choice. And, I can't afford to be careless. I can't afford to be careless. Xiao Yi is deeply in love with me. There's no doubt about this. In fact, I've been aware of it since the beginning. But, I've always felt that Xiao Yi is still young. So, she might not have made up her mind. Perhaps, she might meet a more satisfactory Mr. Right in the future. So, I didn't give her a direct answer. Then, she played a trick on me on the way back. She almost killed me. And, I was very annoyed. But, I was moved when she walked out of the Tianxiang city's gate with her pregnant belly. And, it truly moved me. Therefore, I firmly believed that Dugu Xiaoyi would be Jun Moxie's woman. And, I, Jun Moxie, would approve of her. Old man Dugu and the old lady Dugu's complexions subconsciously relaxed when they heard Da Xiao's words. However, but, this doesn't mean that I'll accept everything. Jun Moxie's words stopped the old lady's question from leaving her mouth. Xiao Yi drugged Jun Moxie in Tiannan. And, she walked out of the Tianxiang city's gate with her pregnant belly. And, this shows how much she loves me. Humans aren't plants. So, how can we be heartless? And, I'm sincerely moved by her desperate feelings. And, I'm deeply moved. Chapter 461. Today's outburst has arrived. The fourth is in the process of trying harder. Moreover, she had acted on her own initiative in these two matters. And, they had resulted in irreparable and serious consequences. I don't mind that she had messed with me that day. But, Guan Qinghan had almost been forced to commit suicide by the corrupt scholars of the world. And, what would happen if the relationship between the two families were placed on the table at this moment? There would be no leeway for us to turn the situation around. Now, I'll have to face a big problem if I accept this marriage. But, the two families will break off completely if I don't accept it. Fortunately, I've always had a good impression of this little girl. So, it wouldn't be difficult for me to accept it. But, what if I didn't have a good impression of her? It can be imagined that the two families would become mortal enemies from then on. And, they would fight to the bitter end for several decades. Then, the Jun family would be exterminated, and the Dugu family would be exterminated. And, neither of our families would be able to bear the consequences of that. And, all of this could have been avoided. Xiao Yi is here at this moment. But, I still want to say this. She's so capricious. She doesn't consider the consequences of her actions. So, how can I feel at ease handing over the position of the first wife to her? Jun Moxie had spoken these words in a very heavy tone. His tone was gentle, but it was also very serious. Dugu Xiaoyi lowered her head in shame. In fact, she had almost buried her small head in her chest. She was an exceptionally intelligent girl. So, she had long since realized that the consequences of her mischievous actions had been very bad. And, it had been very tiring. The old lady opened her mouth to speak. She wanted to say a few words in her granddaughter's defense. But, she didn't say anything in the end. Instead, she sighed softly. Dugu Zongheng and Dugu Wudi looked at each other. They had put themselves in Dugu Xiaoyi's shoes. In fact, they wouldn't have dared to have such a daring wife. But, Xiao Yi is still young. The old lady's wife had been watching Da Xiao the most. She was also Dugu Xiaoyi's mother. She had hastily interjected, and defended her daughter. Yes, the little girl is indeed young. But, that doesn't mean that she deserves to be forgiven for her mistakes. Auntie, Dugu Xiaoyi is from an aristocratic family. The Dugu family's pampering of her had led to a terrible consequence. In fact, it was a very sad consequence. That little girl had become the representative of the Dugu family to a certain extent. Pay attention, it's the direction of attack. Jun Moxie said sternly, you can put it this way. If the 7 young masters cause trouble outside and suffer losses, as long as it's not too excessive, your family will let the younger generation deal with the matter on their own. The older generation will not interfere. However, the Dugu family wouldn't care about right or wrong if something were to happen to Xiao Yi outside. In fact, the entire Dugu family would go into battle together. No matter how unreasonable it is, when it comes to the little girl, it will become very reasonable. Fortunately, the little girl has a kind nature. Otherwise, there would have been many unmanageable consequences. When all is said and done, Dugu Xiaoyi's actions have already represented the Dugu family. If she were to marry into the Jun family one day, then she would be able to represent the powerful forces of the Jun family and the Dugu family. This is tantamount to expanding her influence by more than twofold. If she were to act recklessly at that time, then I can clearly say that apart from a few mysterious and hidden aristocratic families, all the other aristocratic families in the world may be destroyed by her words. Perhaps she will have the potential to become the first wife in the future. But, I can't agree to it now. I don't dare to agree to it. Jun Moxie said boldly, let me ask you. You wouldn't have agreed to it if you were in her shoes, right? So, why do you have to force me? I, Jun Moxie, will not only marry one woman. For now, I have already confirmed that I have Guan Qing Han. And, Guan Qing Han saved my life at all costs because of Xiao Yi's mistake. And, this has led to this complicated situation. To put it bluntly, I would have died if Sister Qing Han hadn't risked her life to save me. Then, how would the Jun family and the Dugu family face this? Wouldn't it be unfair to Sister Qing Han if I had promised to make Xiao Yi the first wife? Because, she had made up for Xiao Yi's mistake. But, she had incurred the criticism of the world's scholars. She had been consigned to eternal damnation. And, she would still have to stand under the little girl in the end. How could this be tolerated? But, Guan Qing Han has always been your sister-in-law. How could she be your first wife? The old lady pondered over Jun Moxie's words. Then, she finally asked. Old Madam also said that it was all in the past. That's all in the past. And, I believe that Guan Qing Han's current status is that of my third uncle's adopted daughter. And, I believe that this isn't a secret anymore. So, why can't she marry me? Moreover, I've never thought of dividing them into seniority. Who's older and who's younger? That's something that we have to fight for. And, we can even recognize you as the eldest sister as long as others submit to you. Jun Moxie smiled. Let's say that I've always been in a passive position in this matter. And, I don't want to be moved like this. So, it's too hasty to talk about marriage right now. You mean, no matter what, you can't give Xiaoyi the title of legal wife? Dugu Zongheng fiercely looked at Jun Moxie. Then, he leaned over and spoke in an extremely dangerous tone. Hee, that was only a rational analysis. I've always had a principle. I don't like to accept threats no matter what I do. It doesn't matter who threatens me. Jun Moxie played it down and said, I would feel very bored if I had to accept threats in my own life. So, it doesn't matter if we break up. Jun Moxie's unyielding attitude made Dugu Zongheng very unhappy. So, he glared at Dugu Zongheng and got angry. Alright. Let's not dwell on this issue any longer. The old lady suddenly smiled. She was all smiles as she said, Xiao Yi's status hasn't been decided yet. But, I believe that Mo Xia won't consider this matter for the time being. So, it's the same to get engaged first. And, the children and grandchildren will take care of themselves. So, why should we care so much about it? As long as Mo Xia treats Xiao Yi well in the future, and tolerates Xiao Yi, nothing is better than that. Moreover, Mo Xia hasn't yielded even a little bit in the face of the Dugu family's pressure. He's spoken frankly. His words may be unpleasant to hear. But, it's undeniable that every word he's spoken is the truth. Everyone has heard it clearly. And, this has made me see the value of a man. A man who can't be subdued by force is a true man. If Xia had been intimidated by our family, and would have agreed to whatever we said, then, I would have reconsidered whether or not I should have agreed to this marriage. This brat, Xia, is pleasing to my eyes. So, you've passed this test. Dugu Zongheng and Dugu Wudi felt faint at the same time. You're the one who said it, and you're the one who said it. But, what should we do? It was your idea to test him when we came here. And, it's your idea not to test him now. So, what else is there to say when you've passed this test? Who would dare to say anything? The two of you will make an appointment with Jun Zhantian in a few days, and settle this matter first. We can talk about it later. In any case, this marriage must be settled first. The old lady bossily made these arrangements to the two men. She didn't even look at them. Well, you will personally go there in order to show your sincerity. Then, you will send a matchmaker to exchange documents after you've come to an agreement. Then, you will find a suitable time to carry out the engagement ceremony. She thought for a moment, and then said, this ceremony will be held in the presence of the royal family and the civil and military officials. Moreover, we will take advantage of this opportunity to collect the money that we've given away in the past few years. I've recorded all the money that you and your father have given away in the past few years. It's a thick book. I'll ask Xiao Yi to send it to you later. Remember, we've spent money on those whose names are on it. So, we can't let any of them off. We must at least collect back our capital. Well, we'll also invite those whose names aren't on it. After all, we'll give them some face, right? This matter is settled. We'll send out invitations when the two of them get married. We don't need to be so extravagant this time. We'll arrange for a few hundred people. Well, we can consider expanding the scale if the Jun family pays the money. After all, the old Jun family still has some face. Well, we must look at the amount of money clearly. We've given 500 taels of silver at the beginning, and we've only given 400 taels of silver this time. That would be too much. We can't make friends with such people in the future. Well, it doesn't necessarily have to be a bride's money. Those who celebrate birthdays, give birth to children, move. Hey, I say, old man, isn't your birthday coming up soon? It seems that we'll be able to receive 2 gifts this time. The time is very tight. Not bad. Even Jun Moxie's head was covered in cold sweat this time. The old lady is very thoughtful. They're not from the same family, and they're not from the same family. Dugu Wudi grinned, and nodded. He had a look of a money grubber on his face. Yes, mother is very wise. It seemed that he would be able to clear the Jun family's debt of 90 million after receiving these 2 gifts. Tell the imperial astronomer to quickly pick an auspicious day. The most important thing is to tell him to stagger the date of the engagement and the birthday celebration. Then, inform Kong Ling Yang, and ask him to take charge. Dugu Wudi hastily interrupted her, Mother, Kong Ling Yang is already dead. He looked at Jun Moxie as he said this. Kong Ling Yang's death must have been caused by this brat. Then, there must have been a ghost. Dead? Oh, it's such a pity for such a talent. Old Mistress Dugu's complexion didn't change as she sighed. She didn't know what kind of talent she was feeling sorry for. Was it a pity for a knowledgeable scholar, or was it a pity for a wedding host? Then, let's find an old chancellor from the Imperial College. Dugu Zongheng nodded and said, that's simple. Although those fellows don't usually get along with us, it doesn't matter. If they don't want to come, we can just tie them up with a rope. Once we get to the scene, if they still dare to not give us face, they'll have the guts. That's good. The old lady nodded in a gratified manner and said, as for the other matters, you 2 big men can do as you see fit. This old woman is a Taoist woman. So, it's not appropriate for her to get involved in these matters. Jun Moxie rolled his eyes. What kind of person is this? You're not getting involved in these matters. you're taking care of everything yourself. But, that old fool Dugu Zongheng wants to tie someone up with a rope. And, the most outrageous thing is that the old lady is saying, that's good. Chapter 462. Alright, you men drink. We women won't blindly get involved. Xiao Yi girl, come with me. The last sentence was a little harsh. Dugu Xiao Yi saw that Jun Mo Xia had arrived, and couldn't pull her leg. She didn't want to leave, the old lady suddenly stopped before leaving. She then turned around to face Dugu Zongheng and Dugu Wu Di. I forgot to ask you two something. Didn't you say that Jun Zhantian's grandson was a debauchee? That he was a rotten wood that couldn't be carved, that he couldn't be pasted on a wall, and that he couldn't be eaten as a dog? These words were said by you too. But, why do I feel that it isn't the case today? I see that this brat is more pleasing to the eye than those 7 fools outside. You two must give me an explanation later. Dugu Zongheng was stunned. Dugu Wu Di was flabbergasted. Explanation? What explanation? How are we supposed to explain? We also want an explanation for Jun Mo Xia's rapid rise in power a few months ago. But who is going to give us an explanation? Such a good boy has a strong character. He isn't afraid of power. He's firm in his heart. Moreover, he's handsome. So, how did he become a debauchee? Don't tell me that you two look down on the Jun family. Are you deliberately distorting the facts? Or are you worried about the emperor's opinion? Are you afraid that 2 military families will become suspicious if they become in-laws? Humph. Let me tell you. You two cowards nearly ruined my precious granddaughter's marriage. Do you think my granddaughter's happiness will be decided by your emotions? I see that the two of you together aren't even as good as Jun Mo Xia alone. I tell you that I'm very angry about this matter. I'm not done with you. Just you wait. This matter isn't over. The old madam roared angrily for a while before she finally left. Dugu Zongheng and Dugu Wu Di looked at each other in dismay. They wanted to cry, but no tears came out. The army of women slowly retreated. Along the way, they could still hear the stern voice of the old lady, as if she was issuing a charge on the battlefield. I don't care what method you use. In short, during this period of time, you must train this girl to the standard of a wife. Look at how you guys have spoiled her. What has she become? She didn't look like a lady from a noble family at all. Not to mention that the other party didn't agree. Even if your son married a wife, would he agree to such a legal wife? I'll leave this matter to the 11 of you. If you can't do it, I'll kick all of you out. Xiaoyi, he, Grandma's darling, why are you frowning? Come on, smile for Grandma. Don't be afraid, don't be afraid. Grandma is here. Grandma will definitely help you. Grandma will do everything for you. The Dugu father and son in the hall, as well as Jun Moxie, were left speechless after hearing these words from the old lady. In fact, their bodies were suffused with a feeling of powerlessness. On one hand, she had just ordered all the madams to teach him a lesson, but on the other hand, she was so protective of him. How could such a lesson be taught? How could he accomplish anything in his lifetime? The 3 men looked at each other in silence for a long time. Then, Dugu Zongheng took the initiative to jump up, and shouted, Mother Fu ****. Serve the wine. Serve the dishes. Is everyone fucking dead? Hurry up. Dugu Wu Di also jumped up at the same time. But, he didn't shout when he saw that his father had shouted first. Instead, he waved his arms, and made a few hand gestures. It didn't take long before 2 large tables were filled with good wine and delicacies. Dugu Cheng and the others had also returned with Tang Yuan. Their timing was very precise, and they were well trained. The 11 men had filled up the 2 tables. They had wanted to sit together at one table. But, everyone except for Jun Moxie had bulky physiques. In fact, they were very different from ordinary people. especially Fatty and Tang Yuan. They had taken up the space of 4 people as soon as they sat down. This left everyone speechless. If they were forced to sit together, then they wouldn't be able to eat. Dugu Zongheng poured a cup of wine, and drained it in one gulp. Then, he wiped his mouth and said, "I won't say anything else. June brat, you must treat this old man's precious granddaughter well. This old man won't forgive you if anything happens to her. Other people are afraid of that old bastard June Zhantian, but this old man isn't afraid." June Moxie didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He understood that no matter how nice the words came out of the mouths of this family, they sounded like provocations and threats. This big family never knew how to speak in a gentle manner. "That's right. June Moxie, I'll skin you if you dare to bully my daughter." Dugu Wudi raised his cup and clinked it with June Moxie's. Then, he raised his head, and the wine was gone with a gulp. "Brother-in-law, ha ha ha, brother-in-law, come and drink." The heroes and legends rushed forward with their wine cups in their hands. It was obvious that they wanted to get this pretty boy drunk. Dugu Zongheng looked at the younger generation, and sighed. Then, he said in a somewhat desolate manner, "You drink to your heart's content. This old man won't accompany you. This old man can only drink 3 cups of wine in one meal. Alas, I used to be a distinguished and elegant hero who wouldn't get drunk even after 1,000 cups." Dugu Wudi hastily consoled him, "Father, you don't need to worry. The old injury on your waist is more important. We'll be able to suppress it once we find the fur of the snow god Martin. Then, you can drink as much as you want to drink at that time." The snow god Martin is easier said than done. That's a spiritual creature of the world. We've been searching for it for more than 10 years now, but we haven't found any news. You must know that the difficulty of capturing the snow god Martin is much more difficult than defeating a level 9 Xian beast to obtain the Xian Dan. Dugu Zongheng's interest was waning. "Does the old man's waist have an injury?" "What kind of injury?" June Moxie stared blankly for a moment, and then asked out of curiosity. Dugu Wudi stared blankly for a moment. Then, he suddenly remembered that this was the great divine doctor who had cured Jun Wui's leg injury. So, he couldn't help but look at him with hope in his eyes as he said, "My father was injured in battle when he was young, and his meridians were damaged. Since then, he's been coughing and having asthma since then. And, there's no cure for it to this day. Do you want to take a look?" "I'll take a look." June Moxie grabbed Dugu Zongheng's left hand without any trace of politeness. Then, he placed his 2 fingers on his pulse, and activated the art of unlocking heaven's fortune. Dugu Zongheng's meridian's condition immediately appeared in his mind. His meridians are broken and withered. Is there no way to treat this illness in this world? June Moxie pondered for a long time. Then, he withdrew his hand and said, "It should be an arrow wound in his body. His lung meridians were injured that day. It wasn't very serious at first, but it's accumulated over a long period of time. I believe that even if we find the legendary fur of the snow god Martin, it'll only be a temporary cure." "Ah. It's that serious. Then, do you have a way?" Dugu Wudi was gobsmacked. "It's not that there isn't a way. But, it'll be very troublesome. Moreover, it'll take at least half a month's time." June Moxie frowned as he spoke in a confident manner. "Half a month's time can be cured?" "Not long, not long." Dugu Wudi's voice trembled. He suddenly grabbed June Moxie's shoulder. "My worthy son-in-law, you must cure my father's old injuries. I have no opinion on the matter between you and Xiao Yi." This move was very effective. Dugu Wudi had directly called him, "My worthy son-in-law, you obviously have no opinion." "But, I have an opinion here." June Moxie rolled his eyes at him. Then, he said, "It's not a big deal for the time being. I'll give you a prescription. You go and get the ingredients. You take them every morning and night. Then, you'll come to my grandfather's place every day from the 3rd day onwards. I'll give him acupuncture treatment. With this kind of continuous treatment, I should be able to fully recover in about 10 days or so. Jun Moxie beamed as he said this. He took the pen and paper, and started to write down a prescription. Dugu Wudi held it tightly in his hand as if he had found a treasure. His fingers were trembling with excitement. He quickly put it away in his bosom, and even patted it to show its existence. Old man Dugu's illness wasn't too troublesome. His meridians had been damaged. It was an incurable disease in the eyes of modern doctors. But it wasn't a big deal in Dashao's hands. Old man Dugu's old injuries were more than 10 years old. But they weren't as serious as Jun Wui's. So, he could use the Hongjun Pagoda's spirit energy to flush it away. After all, it was the world's most primordial spirit energy. However, Jun Moxie had a vague plan in mind. So, how could he let go of such a strong ally like the Dugu family? Obviously, it would be more appropriate to let these two military leaders get together. At that time, there would be two big shots from the military who could talk about everything. How convenient would that be? As for his relationship with Dugu Xiaoyi, Jun Moxie didn't want to have any ideas. That was because that would make him feel like he was using nepotism. So, Jun Dashao didn't want to take advantage of him. Moreover, he didn't want to profane his feelings because of this. Everyone started to celebrate as soon as the matter was settled. Especially Dugu Zongheng, who felt that there was hope for a full recovery. He was beaming with joy. Although he couldn't drink, he had become the most outstanding and powerful drinker. He glared at everyone, and no one was allowed to drink less. Tang Yuan was more tragic. Although he was fat, his alcohol tolerance wasn't good. In just a short while, he had secretly gone out to vomit 3 times. Then, he came back and continued to be forced to drink. Finally, he lost consciousness. He forced himself to say that he was going to the toilet and staggered out. Then, he didn't come back. Jun Moxie seemed to have heard a crashing sound from the pool. It seemed like something huge had fallen into the lake and created a huge splash. But he didn't take it to heart. After all, this was the Dugu family, not the Jun family. Maybe the Dugu family had some kind of activity. Great General Dugu Wudi didn't know how many cups he had drunk. In the beginning, the 8 men of the Dugu family felt strange. How come this Jun Moxie doesn't get drunk no matter how much he drinks? But later on, everyone became tipsy. They didn't care whether it was Jun Moxie in front of them. They raised their cups, and heroically shouted, "Cheers!" Then, they raised their necks. In the end, Dugu Wudi narrowed his eyes, and stuck out his tongue. His arm was like a pole, and he wrapped it around Jun Moxie's neck. He drunkenly said, "Brother, I'll leave this matter of my father to you, big brother." Jun Moxie had a bitter look on his face. He didn't know whether he should agree or not. What kind of seniority is this? Chapter 463. The 7 of them were also dead drunk, singing at the top of their lungs. Squinting their eyes, the 7 brothers finally fell to the ground, their snores shaking the heavens. In any case, everyone had drunk too much. So much so that when a maid came in and said something, no one heard it clearly, even Dashao did not run away. In the end, he stayed at the Dugu family's place. Dashao drank a lot too. Although he forced out a lot of alcohol by cheating, the remaining alcohol was enough for him to drink a pot. In the end, the smell of alcohol filled the air, and he became muddle-headed. He looked for Tang Yuan everywhere but could not find him, so he went to the guest room to sleep. When he woke up the next day, he heard 2 maids whispering outside, "Hey, did you know? The guest who came yesterday drank too much." "Yeah, I heard about it too, but not in detail." "Then I'll tell you." "Don't tell anyone." "Yeah, I definitely won't tell anyone. I heard that fatty went to the toilet yesterday and vomited for a long time." Then there was a plop. Guess what happened? What happened? He actually jumped into the latrine pit and wanted to catch fish in there. Oh my god, there was a heavy rain just now. That splashed out. Oh, it's so disgusting, really? What happened after that? Hey, Tong and the others were exhausted. The smell was terrible, and the place was not right. That fatty's whole body was submerged in there. More than a dozen people tied him up with ropes before they pulled him out. Everyone was splashed with blarg. Then they dragged him to the pond and washed him 5 times before they brought him into the guest room. It was said that there was still a stench after he entered the guest room. Tong and the others had no choice but to get 7 or 8 buckets of water and wash him twice before he was clean. Then, he still hasn't woken up after such a big struggle? Not woken up. Not only did he not wake up, but he kept shouting that he wanted to catch fish in there. He's really too strong, that's not all. It's said that when he went in, young Master Li was squatting inside. So, he grabbed him with one hand and threw him out. He still had a lingering fear after that. Fortunately, young Master Li was thrown out. Otherwise, he would have been smashed into the latrine pit. Although young Master Li is tall, he still can't be compared with young Master Tang. I heard from young Master Li that young Master Tang insisted on fishing, and then jumped down. Ah! Ha ha ha! I'm dying of laughter. Ha ha ha! I'm dying of laughter. June Moxie, who was eavesdropping, also burst into laughter. Although he knew that this was an embarrassing matter for his good buddy, and he really shouldn't laugh, this damn fatty was too good at messing around. With his weight, if he fell into that trap, it would really be impossible for him to call for help. As soon as they heard Da Xiao's laughter, the 2 maids immediately panicked. However, they saw this guy laughing all the way out. He only inquired about where Tang Yuan lived and then left. Only then did they let out a sigh of relief. It must be known that aristocratic families had very strict rules. For maids like them to discuss about visiting guests in private, they couldn't let the guests' companions know. When June Moxie saw Tang Yuan again, this guy was wrapped in a quilt and sleeping soundly. The smell of alcohol assailed his nostrils. From the looks of it, this guy actually didn't have any impression of what happened last night. Before coming here, June Moxie only felt that it was funny. This fatty really didn't know how to behave. He actually went to other people's latrine pit to catch fish just because he drank a little more. However, now that he saw Tang Yuan lying on the bed, June Moxie suddenly became suspicious. Tang Yuan might not know how to behave, or he might be careless, or he might be disappointing, or even tasteless, but he was absolutely not muddle-headed. Even if he was drunk, he definitely wouldn't be retarded enough to go to the latrine pit to catch fish, right? Moreover, with Tang Yuan's physique, how could there be such a big latrine pit? It could make him fall down and still flop around in it. This can't be a fucking swimming pool. Other people might not know, but June Moxie knew about the June family's latrine pit. In addition to the owner's personal convenience, there was also a place to entertain guests, and also a place for the guards in the house. Other than the guards' place, which was slightly bigger, the other few facilities were of good quality. There was simply no possibility of putting guests in. Moreover, with Fatty's physique, there was only so much space, and it was estimated that he wouldn't be able to force his way in. But the fact was that, then how did Tang Yuan fall into the latrine pit? The only explanation was he schemed by someone? June Moxie gently lifted Tang Yuan's quilt and carefully examined his body. He couldn't find anything. He stood up and muttered to himself for a while before walking out. He beckoned a guard, "Take me to the place where we drank last night." Seeing that it was his future son-in-law, the guard didn't dare to neglect and brought June Moxie back to the place where they drank last night. The mess had already been cleaned up, but the faint smell of alcohol still lingered. June Moxie stood at the place where Tang Yuan was originally sitting. At this time, the big chair specially made for Fatty had already been removed. Da Xiao muttered to himself for a while and said, "How many convenient places are there around here?" The guard was startled and said, "Convenient places, there are 2 nearby. There are also some in the distance." "Oh, take me there." Jun Moxie waved his hand. The guard was very surprised, thinking that this future son-in-law was very strange. He had visited rockery and gardens before, but this was the first time he saw someone visiting a latrine. But the guest had a request, especially his future son-in-law, he couldn't dare to refuse. He had no choice but to bring him there. After looking at 3 convenient places in a row, Jun Moxie's suspicions grew stronger. These 3 places didn't have that kind of mark. But, after coming over from that side, there were only these 3 places that could be convenient. So, where did Tang Yuan go to? Is there any other place? Jun Moxie thoughtfully straightened up. He asked lightly. There is, but it's a little further. Again, that place is used by some servants, it's extremely filthy. The guard inexplicably felt a trace of coldness. This young Master Jun was really strange. Ordinary people would have to cover their noses in such a place, but he acted as if nothing had happened. He didn't even frown. "Take me there." Jun Moxie calmly walked out. The guard's heart was perturbed. He had already realized that something was wrong. He was afraid that this son-in-law was investigating the matter of young Master Tang falling into the latrine pit last night. He simply brought Jun Moxie to the place where the incident happened. Along the way, he winked at a few familiar guards, asking them to quickly find the young masters and old masters. He was afraid that something big was going to happen. Jun Moxie didn't care at all. He let the guard pass the message. This matter would definitely need to be told to the person in charge of the Dugu family. So, he might as well save the time of sending someone to pass the message. Jun Moxie stood in front of the big latrine pit at the place where the incident happened last night with his hands behind his back. He carefully looked at it. That's right, it should be here. There were a few stone steps, and there was a deep pit at the bottom. But at the edge of the stone steps, there was a protrusion of about 40 to 50 centimeters. This should be a preventive measure to prevent adults from getting drunk or children from falling down. The Dugu family had done a good job in this regard. But, how did Tang Yuan fall down? It was still quite a distance away. But, there was a big pool down there. It was winter, and it was slightly frozen. Jun Moxie's complexion became colder the more he looked. He snorted, walked out, and asked, "I heard that there was a young master who went to the toilet here last night. May I ask who he is?" "Yes, that young master is the nephew of second grandmother's maternal family. He has been in the Dugu residence for many days, call him in. Tell him that this young master has something to ask him." The guard hadn't finished speaking when Jun Moxie interrupted him. His tone was cold and indifferent. Dashao's words were filled with dense murderous intent. Great General Dugu Wudi had already rushed over anxiously outside the latrine. He was accompanied by the 3 brothers, Dugu Ing, Dugu Xiong, and Dugu Hao. Dugu Ing opened his mouth when he saw Jun Moxie come out. "Brother-in-law, why are you looking for a latrine pit so early in the morning? Why aren't you squatting? What are you doing?" Only Dugu Wudi could tell that something was wrong from Jun Moxie's gloomy and murderous expression. He asked, "Xia, did something happen? Tang Yuan got drunk last night." He. "That guy is a good-for-nothing. He fell into this latrine pit." "Ah, that's what happened." Jun Moxie stretched out his hand and pointed behind him. His cold gaze swept over the faces of the 4 men. "He fell into this latrine pit." Dugu Wudi was a crude man, but he wasn't stupid. Otherwise, how could he have become the commander of an army? He immediately understood, how could he have fallen in here? "Great General, have you also thought of this? I'm also suspicious, there are so many latrines in your residence. Why didn't he go to them? Why did he have to run so far away? Moreover, this isn't his home. He's not familiar with this place. Moreover, he was drinking in the hall 2 kilometers away during the banquet. But, he came here to jump into the latrine pit. June Moxie sneered, could it be that Fatty has been possessed by a ghost? Dugu Wudi's face sank. Fatty might not be popular, but he was still the heir of the Tang family. Moreover, Tang Yuan was no longer the same as he had been in the past. His status as the aristocratic hall's treasurer and the capital's god of wealth was enough to increase his net worth by 10,000 times. Moreover, he was one of the few brothers that young Master June had acknowledged. So, how could he be ignored? And, the consequences would be dire if he were to make a mistake in handling this matter. Great General Dugu suddenly turned around and looked at his 3 sons, who can tell me what's going on? Father, this is very normal. What can't a person do when he's drunk? Fatty Tang has such a cumbersome body. So, it's not worth making a fuss over if he drinks too much and falls into the latrine pit, right? The corners of Dugu Ying's mouth twitched. He still wanted to laugh. This matter was too amusing. You muddle-headed scoundrel. You're still amusing. Do you have a brain? Or is your brain moldy? Dugu Wudi was so angry that he almost vomited blood. Not worth making a fuss over. Didn't you see that your brother-in-law was about to kill someone? Fatty Tang has such a cumbersome body. Didn't you think that he would be able to walk 2 kilometers away after drinking so much wine? Xia, I've heard that there's another young master in your residence. June Moxie narrowed his eyes and smiled. Then, he said in a rather gentle manner, moreover, this young master and Tang Yuan were squatting in the latrine last night. So, I'd like to see this fated person. I have a few words to say. After today, our deputy moderator Shi Zhu will be leaving us for some time due to work and health reasons. Shi Zhu is a respectable elder sister. She has contributed a lot to the evil monarch's book. She didn't get anything from me. In fact, we didn't even chat much. She basically talked, and I listened. To be honest, I'm very ashamed. But, elder sister Shi Zhu spared no effort to create a harmonious book review area for our evil monarch. The 2 iron and steel class, 1 groups worked hard without complaint. Many of our brothers and sisters in the group have become real good friends thanks to her efforts. We can talk about anything in the group, and some of us feel like a family. She's also very concerned about my life on QQ. She makes me feel like I have such an elder sister taking care of me at any time. This feeling is very warm. I'm very grateful. Elder sister Shi Zhu's health isn't very good. Moreover, she has been working hard in the past few years. So, she has developed rheumatism in her legs. So, it's even more uncomfortable in the winter. Moreover, winter is the busiest time of her work. So, she needs to leave for a while. So, all we can do is silently wish her well. I wish her success in her work and good health. Chapter 464. Today's second update. The third update is being revised, estimated to take around 10 minutes, the fourth update is being worked hard, the last day will be doubled. I will break out to my heart's content, and everyone will be happy. Dugu Wudi's complexion turned bitter. That young master was the nephew of Dugu Wudi's second lady. He was from the Huang family of the Golden East City. The Huang family could be considered as a Xian Qi family. But, it was still far from being comparable to the Dugu family and the Jun family. However, he had overestimated his capabilities and had come here with the intention of courting the young master. It was unknown what the second lady was thinking. But, she had bypassed General Dugu, and led him to the old man and the old lady. But, he had been rejected by the old man and the old lady on the spot. Firstly, their families weren't suitable. Secondly, that guy didn't have any skills. In fact, the old man Dugu Zongheng had said at that time, what kind of small fry has come to the Dugu family to seek marriage? It would be better to marry June Moxie than to marry him. After all, he has a good family background, however, that brat's skin was very thick. He had used the excuse of visiting his aunt after his marriage proposal had been rejected. His intention was to wait for Dugu Xiaoyi to return, and then ask Dugu Xiaoyi for her opinion. After all, the two of them were childhood sweethearts. And they had played together since childhood. The two of them had grown up, and hadn't had much contact with each other. But they still had the foundation of their childhood feelings. Moreover, he had heard that the Dugu family had rejected the imperial family's marriage proposal. So, it seemed that they wanted to find a good home for their daughter. And they didn't pay attention to the fact that their families were well matched in social status. Moreover, the Jun Moxie whom his cousin had fallen in love with was a complete debauchee. Therefore, the young master's heart had become even more lively. Therefore, he had shamelessly waited for Dugu Xiaoyi to return. Dugu Wudi didn't care too much about it after the second lady begged him to stay. The Dugu family was a big family with a big business. How could they care about having one more person stay and eat? However, now that Dugu Xiaoyi had someone to rely on, it could basically be confirmed that the marriage between Jun Moxie and Dugu Xiaoyi had been finalized. Dugu Wudi obviously didn't want to keep this nephew of his to be an eyesore. It would be terrible if he caused some trouble. The great general had planned to chase that fellow back in a few days, but he didn't expect to hear that name from Jun Moxie's mouth at this moment. This is the Dugu family, not the Jun family. Since Jun Moxie was able to say this, it meant that he definitely had a certain degree of certainty. He was even able to confirm that it was this cousin young master who had done this. Then, the Dugu family would be made of wax if that was the case. Madame Huang was his second lady. She was his wife who had entered the marriage in a red sedan chair. She wasn't an ordinary concubine. She wasn't the wife of the first wife, but she had the status of a second wife. Looking at Jun Moxie's expression and the look in his eyes, it was clear that he wouldn't bend the rules even if the entire world were to kneel down in front of him if he were to confirm this matter. Not to mention the Dugu family's reputation, even if the entire world were to kneel down in front of him, he still wouldn't make an exception. When did this brat Jun Moxie care about human life? That little bastard. He's stirring up trouble for me. Dugu Wudi cursed in a resentful manner. He was incomparably vexed. Wouldn't it have been better if I had driven him back earlier? I shouldn't have listened to that woman's nagging. Motherfew *cur. This is bad, isn't it? You're doing this for the good of your nephew. But, you've sent him to the gates of hell. Do you think you can provoke this brat, Jun Moxie? He can kill people with a glare. Your insignificant Huang family can't afford to provoke Fatty Tang. Moreover, the Tang family is also a Tianxiang aristocratic family. Fatty can casually offer a reward, and your entire Huang family will be exterminated in a single night. He's too courageous. The group of people were either anxious, or at a loss. Some of them were like the Dugu brothers. They were thoughtlessly crossing their arms as they watched the show. They had different expressions on their faces. Dugu Wudi quietly waved his hand, and called over a guard. He then asked him to quickly invite grandfather Dugu over to keep watch. After all, Dugu Wudi wasn't sure that he could stop this good son-in-law. In case Jun Moxie went crazy, the young master finally appeared at the end of the flower path under everyone's watchful eyes. He was beaming from ear to ear as he walked over. He froze for a moment when he saw everyone standing in front of the latrine. Then, he regained his calm demeanor. Jun Moxie's drooping eyelids slightly opened as he looked at the Dugu family's young master from afar. The expression on the young master's face was clearly reflected in Jun Moxie's eyes even though he was several dozen feet away. It seemed as if he had used a pair of binoculars to zoom in on the Dugu family's face. This included the flash of shock on his face, and the panic in his eyes. Moreover, his relaxed palm had clenched into a fist as he walked over. It seemed as if he was full of vigilance. Moreover, it could be seen from the slight undulation of his exposed neck muscles that his entire body had unconsciously stiffened when he saw everyone. That's right. It should be this brat. The above evidence is very sufficient. Uncle, are you looking for me? The young master finally arrived in front of them. He then respectfully bowed towards Dugawudi. At first glance, he had a slender stature and a handsome face. In fact, he had the appearance of a talented person. But, his eyes seemed to be hanging upside down. His expression revealed a hint of lust. His lips were also somewhat thin. In fact, it seemed as if he was somewhat ungrateful. I'm not looking for you. It's this young Master June who's looking for you. Dugawudi's face sank as he looked at June Moxie. You must answer truthfully if young Master June asks you a question. Do you understand? Young Master June. Young Master June Moxie. The young master turned his head to look at June Moxie. He nodded with a smile, and spoke in a neither servile nor overbearing manner. My surname is Huang. I'm Huang Shu Lu of the Golden East's Huang family. There was a trace of amazement in his eyes. He hadn't expected that this notorious debauchee of Tianxiang City would be so handsome. Huang Shu Lu. This name has a profound meaning. Looking at the flow of an obscene book. June Moxie nodded. Then, he rolled his eyes. I heard that you saw young Master Tang go to the latrine last night. Moreover, young Master Tang brought him out. Everyone knew about this. Huang Shu Lu was stunned as he replied, That's right. Yesterday's incident has left a lingering fear in my heart. But, I don't know if young Master June has any advice for me. I don't have any advice for you. I only want to ask you clearly. Where did you see young Master Tang Yuan? Was it on the road? Or was it in the latrine? June Moxie smiled gently and asked. He was somewhat impatient in his heart. Why would I spend so much effort if I hadn't been in the Dugu family? I would have used the soul-absorbing technique. This brat is at best a silver Xian level. So, wouldn't it be easy to capture him? However, Dugawudi was in the Dugu family's residence. So, June Moxie was bound to leave the Dugu family some face. He was at a loss. It was in the latrine here. He. I've always loved cleanliness. But, I suddenly felt uncomfortable in my stomach last night. So, I was afraid that I'd make too much noise in the latrine of the guest room. So, I came here. He. I'm ashamed. I had to find someone to inquire about it. Huang Shu Lu's expression didn't change. Is that so? Young Master Huang, please pay attention. I asked you where you saw Tang Yuan. I didn't ask you why you ran so far to relieve yourself. June Moxie looked at him with a cold gaze. And, an invisible pressure slowly attacked him. Please answer my question. I was about to squat down after I arrived here. Then, a man suddenly rushed in, grabbed my neck, and threw me out. I was startled at that time, haha. Huang Shu Lu shook his head and smiled. Huang Shu Lu shook his head and smiled. He then said, Everyone can imagine how embarrassed I was at that time. I had barely taken off my pants when I was lifted up. I was almost scared to death, haha, haha. He laughed twice. But, he discovered that no one was laughing with him. So, he awkwardly stopped laughing. What happened after that? June Moxie asked in an emotionless manner. Then, I realized that it was Tang Dashao. Only then did I realize that it was actually young Master Tang. At that time, I kept begging for mercy, asking young Master Tang to wait a moment and let me pull up my pants. But it seemed that young Master Tang had drunk too much and didn't pay any attention to me. Instead, he threw me out. My butt was nearly split into 8 pieces. That day, I didn't even pull up my pants. In addition, my stomach was already feeling uncomfortable, so I nearly made a fool of myself. By the time Tang Yuan came out last night, it was already midnight. Moreover, there were no stars or moon last night. So, I couldn't see clearly. I'm afraid that it would have been even more difficult for you to relieve yourself in the latrine. You were caught off guard, and your neck was grabbed. Your face should have been facing downwards. So, you couldn't have seen who it was. So, how did you know that it was Tang Yuan who came in? Do you know Tang Yuan? I can see that you're a silver Xian expert. Tang Yuan is tall, but his strength is quite low. So, how was he able to throw you out? Jun Moxie didn't pay any attention to his joke. Instead, he continued to ask in a callous manner. That's because I've seen young Master Tang before. So, how could I dare to resist? Huang Shulu's eyes turned as he hastily replied. But, the Dugu family had only invited me, Jun Moxie, to their banquet last night. So, you weren't surprised when you saw Tang Yuan? Jun Moxie looked at him with pity. Huang Shulu, this is your last chance. You won't be able to escape death even if you hide under your uncle's crotch if I find out anything. So, you must think clearly. Jun Moxie's enormous spiritual pressure vanished along with these words. And, Huang Shulu had just felt somewhat relaxed. But, he suddenly felt a spiritual pressure that was 100 times more powerful than the one he had felt a moment ago. And, it felt like a mountain was pressing down on him. In fact, Huang Shulu felt an impulse to kneel down on the ground and worship him. I really saw him here. I'm telling the truth. Huang Shulu's mind felt muddled under Jun Moxie's enormous pressure. And, beads of cold sweat started to appear on his forehead. He wanted to defend himself for a moment. But, how could his insignificant silver Xian level spiritual power compare to Jun Moxie's? His calm state of mind had been crushed by Jun Moxie's imposing aura for a moment. And, his mind was thrown into chaos. So, he spoke in a panicked manner, I can testify with my character. And, I believe that my uncle and my cousins can also testify for me. How can I be a despicable villain who would push someone into a cesspool? Duguing and his two brothers sighed as soon as these words came out. And, that was because even they could hear the problem in his words. Jun Moxie hadn't even asked Tang Yuan how he had fallen into the cesspool from the beginning to the end. And, this brother of his had said, how can I be a despicable villain who would push someone into a cesspool? Wasn't this a confession without being pressed? How about it? Jun Moxie looked at Dugu Wudi. Dugu Wudi heaved a long sigh. He closed his eyes, and spoke after a long while, Moxia, he's my nephew. Can you give me some face, he insulted my brother. Jun Moxie interrupted his future father-in-law in a cold and detached manner. No one can insult my brother in this world. Jun Moxie coldly interrupted his future father-in-law. Chapter 465. I've finally realized that I'll be able to break out today. This is the third chapter. There's still one more chapter to go. Double the last hour. Where's the monthly ticket? Jun Moxie stood tall with a sneer on his face. He fixed his gaze on Dugu Wudi, don't mention your Dugu family. Even the Emperor of Heaven won't be able to do this. I can't afford to do this. Dugu Wudi's lips squirmed a few times. He seemed to be in a difficult position, why can't I? Moreover, young Master Tang didn't. Uncle, please don't speak anymore. You and my third uncle have a friendship of life and death. I only ask you one thing. What would you do if my third uncle, Jun Wui, were to accompany you, and were thrown into a cesspool? Jun Moxie Lengleng asked. Fu *k. Who dares? I'll exterminate his entire family. Dugu Wudi was furious, who dares to deal with my third brother? Then, why are you advising me to let it go? Jun Moxie looked at him strangely. Da Xiao's face was still cold and handsome. However, he was somewhat pleased in his heart. Great General Dugu is a worthy friend. Dugu Wudi was left tongue-tied. He couldn't even say a word to plead for leniency. Put yourself in someone else's shoes. Everyone has the same conscience. June Moxie's knife-like eyes looked at Huang Shulu. Moreover, he must have his reasons for doing this. Don't you want to know the reason? No. I didn't do it. Why do you insist that I was the one who did it? Tang Yuan accidentally fell into the cesspool. What does that have to do with me? Why do you insist on pinning this crime on my head? Huang Shulu suddenly jumped up, and his spittle flew in all directions. He knew that his Huang family couldn't afford to offend the Dugu family, the Jun family, or even the Tang family. He would be done for if this crime was proven. In fact, his entire Huang family would be in danger of being destroyed. Jun Moxie suddenly stretched out his hand, and pressed down on his head. Jun Moxie's movements weren't fast. Huang Shulu clearly saw him stretch out his hand. He even tried to dodge it with all his strength. But, he couldn't. He stared blankly as Jun Moxie's right hand pressed down on his head. An enormous and irresistible force surged forth. Huang Shulu's body couldn't move at all. He felt that his body was no longer under his control. He couldn't even close his eyes. Then, he heard Jun Moxie's voice, Huang, to open his eyes. Huang Shulu involuntarily opened his eyes wide. He saw a pair of eyes appearing in front of his eyes. Then, these eyes slowly turned into two bottomless ponds. Suddenly, he felt a subtle feeling of dizziness and confusion. It felt more and more like a dream. Huang Shulu tried his best to struggle out of it. But, he suddenly discovered that this pair of deep pond-like nothingness had suddenly turned into a vast starry sky. The brightest starry sky, the most dazzling starry sky. The stars were shining brightly, and he was flying aimlessly in the boundless starry sky. He had no goal or direction. At this moment, an unusually gentle voice that was mixed with the most amiable voice suddenly rang out. The voice seemed to be very vague and distant, like the warmest lullaby that could actually make one's heart and body completely relax and let down all of one's guard. Listening to this voice, it was as safe and comfortable as lying in his mother's arms when he was young. Huang Shulu's face slowly turned from hysterical disbelief to a cute, hopeful, comfortable, and relieved expression. What's your name? It was still that gentle voice, like the spring breeze brushing past willow branches, the fragrance of flowers wafting into one's dreams, like the whisper of a mother, the comfort of a loved one, Huang Shulu. Huang Shulu's face revealed a relaxed smile. What were you doing last night? Jun Moxie asked softly. The faces of the people of the Dugu family exposed an aghast expression. There's such a terrifying technique in this world that can control a person's mind. It can make a person willingly reveal the biggest secret in their heart. It's unimaginable. It's unbelievable. Last night. Huang Shulu's relaxed smile suddenly turned somewhat sinister. He felt somewhat pained. I was in the Dugu family last night. I heard that they were entertaining their new son-in-law. Damn it, oh. Does this have anything to do with you? What did you do? Huang Shulu's expression became more and more pained. The Dugu family's new son-in-law should have been me. It should have been me. I've been longing for Xiao Yi for 6 whole years, 6 whole years. She's finally grown up now. But, she doesn't know how to judge a person. She's taken a fancy to a debauchee, a notorious debauchee. How can I be reconciled to this? Moreover, our Huang family isn't a powerful family. And, we've been repeatedly bullied in recent years. Perhaps we would have been exterminated a long time ago if we weren't relatives of the Dugu family. My Huang family will be able to rest easy if Xiao Yi and I can reconcile. But, we won't be able to get closer to the Dugu family by relying on little aunt. But, it'll be different if I become the son-in-law of the Dugu family. And, I'll be able to go further. He smiled proudly as he spoke till here. Everyone was left speechless. I've been looking forward to it for 6 years. Dugu Xiaoyi is only 16 and a half years old. In other words, this guy has been thinking about Dugu Xiaoyi since she was 10 years old. It's too early. I had heard that the Dugu family had rejected the imperial family's marriage proposal. So, I immediately rushed over to ask for the Dugu family's hand in marriage. After all, they aren't very satisfied with that debauchee June. Anyway, I, Huang Shulu, am considered a rising star of the younger generation. Moreover, our families are relatives. So, I only need little aunt's pillow talk to my uncle. And, things would have been very promising. But, I hadn't expected that he would flatly refuse me. Moreover, he would entertain his new son-in-law in front of me. Everyone let out an "oh" sound as they understood. Dugu Zongheng had also gotten the news at this time. So, he had rushed over in a hurry. And, he had arrived just in time to hear that brat's words. His face had turned purple with anger, and he was about to slap him with his palm. June Moxie gently shook his hand to indicate that he shouldn't act rashly in order to avoid disturbing him. "Oh, entertain your new son-in-law, how did you do it?" June Moxie's voice was getting softer and softer. "How did I do it? What else could I have done? Haha, I couldn't stand it anymore." I could hear them shouting and drinking from afar. It was so noisy that I couldn't sleep. So, I sneaked over to take a look. I wanted to see what kind of legendary son-in-law of the Dugu family looked like. But, I saw a big fatty staggering out of the room when I arrived at the door. He grabbed me, and said, "Take me to the latrine." What does that fatty think of me as? Is he a manservant? That damn fatty is so drunk that he can't even open his eyes. He must have been blind. I asked. "Who are you, Your Excellency?" And, that fatty said, "I'm June." June. June. I became even angrier. So, this is our new son-in-law. I thought that the Dugu family had found a good son-in-law. But, it turns out that he's such a fat bastard. Compared to me, he can't even be compared to me. Motherfucker, this is intolerable. So, I took him to the latrine. Then, I turned a corner. Then, I suddenly thought, maybe he'll choke to death if I take this new son-in-law to the latrine pit and push him down. He'll become a big joke even if he's lucky and doesn't choke to death. And, how could the Dugu family accept him as their son-in-law with their temperament? Wouldn't I become even more valuable at that time? He. He laughed maliciously. His face had turned ferocious and terrifying. Everyone sighed. This is a typical vile person's heart. I looked around and saw that there was no one around. So, I took this hateful fatty and walked towards the latrine. Damn it! That damn fatty was so heavy that he almost crushed me to death. I finally arrived, and I couldn't hold on any longer. It's funny that this fatty vomited all over me in a daze. And, he even said thank you. So, I kicked him down. Unfortunately, he didn't drown to death. Damn that damn fatty, everyone finally understood what was going on. Nobody knew about this at first. But, when I came out, several guards came to the latrine. Seeing that I couldn't hide in time, I simply shouted for help. Young Master June fell into the latrine pit. At this point, a vexed expression appeared on his face. In the end, I found out that this fatty isn't June Moxie. After all, I got the wrong person. But, although that fatty isn't June Moxie, his background isn't small either. He's actually the son of the Minister of Revenue. I can't afford to offend him either. Once people find out, not only me, but the entire Huang family will be in danger of destruction. All my painstaking efforts have been in vain, and I've even gotten myself into big trouble. June Moxie slapped him, and made him faint. He then stood up, and shook his head with a smile. The Dugu family is a place of crouching tigers and hidden dragons. They even have such a young and promising young master. We two brothers were drinking in the Dugu family, and we were plotted against. I don't know if this can be considered as deliberate murder. This matter is really unimaginable. Dugu Zongheng, his son, and his grandson's faces turned red at the same time. Such a thing had happened in the Dugu family, and it had left them feeling ashamed. Jun Moxie's voice hadn't been loud. But his words had pierced their internal organs like a red-hot knife. Da Xiao's tone had been flat, but his words had been extremely sharp. Moreover, he had spoken the truth, and hadn't used any exaggerated words. This was undoubtedly a great humiliation. Such an absurd thing had happened in the Dugu family, and it was tantamount to an extraordinary shame and humiliation. Their own guests had been pushed into the latrine pit by their own relatives. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that this was deliberate murder. Moreover, this guest was the grandson of the Duke of Tianxiang, Tang Wanli. He was also the son of the Minister of Revenue. He was also the future head of the Tang family. He was also the new god of wealth of the capital. The Dugu family's name would become infamous in the entire Xian continent if this matter were to spread out. Who would dare to come to the Dugu family to drink in the future? Chapter 466. Fourth chapter. 4,100 characters. The old man was extremely angry this time. He was jumping up and down and roaring. His face was full of excitement, and his stomach was full of anger. Great General Dugu Wudi was also indignant. His facial muscles were twitching, and his cheeks were twitching. He was also unable to restrain his anger. His daughter Xiao Yi had found her husband with great difficulty. And it seemed that Jun Moxie was a dragon among men. Dugu Wudi was reluctant to admit it, but he had already accepted it in his heart. Moreover, his daughter had entered the city with a big belly. So, who would dare to accept her apart from Jun Moxie? It took a lot of effort to settle this matter. His father-in-law and son-in-law were drinking in high spirits. Moreover, Jun Moxie had also agreed to treat his father's old injuries. This was double happiness for the Dugu family. In fact, it was a good day to add happiness to happiness. Dugu Wudi wiped his cold sweat as he realized that his nephew wanted to push his son-in-law into the latrine at such a critical moment. Fortunately, he had made a mistake. He had pushed Tang Yuan into the latrine. Had he pushed Jun Moxie in instead, Dugu Wudi couldn't imagine what would have happened. There was at least one thing that was certain: Dugu Xiaoyi's efforts had gone down the drain, and her father's decades of chronic illness had lost all hope. As for Jun Zhantian, there was 100% chance that he would launch an attack on them. How could Jun Zhantian allow his grandson to suffer such humiliation given his temperament? As the saying goes, a scholar can be killed, but not humiliated. The two families would have been at loggerheads with each other. The father and son roared for a while. Then, the inner courtyard was thrown into chaos. A group of women rushed out. "It's so early in the morning. What's with the two of you?" It was the old mistress who questioned. "I'm not only going crazy today. I'm also going to kill people." Dugu Zongheng jumped up and cursed. "Who do you think you are?" The old lady glared at him. She was about to get angry. Suddenly, a delicate and pretty woman rushed out from behind her. Her face was full of panic. Lu Er. What's wrong? Why are you lying on the ground?" After shouting for a long time, he realized that Huang Shu Lu was still unconscious. He couldn't help but raise his head in panic. Master, what's going on? What's going on? Ask your nephew. Your Huang family has educated your descendants well. I didn't expect your Huang family to be so far-sighted. What a scheme! What a scheme! Dugu Wudi reprimanded with a cold expression. Jun Moxie looked at the noisy family and felt impatient. Moreover, he was still an outsider. He lifted his foot and walked out. After taking 2 steps, he suddenly stopped and turned around. He pointed at Huang Shulu, who was lying on the ground, and said, "This person, I'm giving face to the Dugu family. I won't do it myself." But he had to die. There was absolutely no room for discussion on this matter. If the Huang family is dissatisfied, Jun Moxie, am willing to reason with them at any time. He shouldn't have framed my brother like this. I don't care what he had done in the past. And, I don't care whether he was kind and honest in the past. But, he can't absolve himself of the blame even if he dies 10,000 times. Who dares to bully my brother? Not even the heavens. Moreover, I don't know how Fatty will retaliate against him and the Huang family. I won't guess Fatty's thoughts. So, I will support him unconditionally. That's all I have to say. His tone was awe-inspiring, ice-cold, and callous. His indifferent words were like a supreme monarch announcing his order to kill a person. No one could see that an invisible and silent stream of energy had penetrated Huang Shulu's head from the tip of his finger. The Dugu family may be biased, but this person won't be able to see tomorrow's sun. I won't leave any leeway. I won't leave any leeway. I won't leave any hope for my enemy to crawl back up. My brother's enemy is the same. After saying these words, Jun Mo Xia walked forward coldly. Wherever he passed, the crowd would involuntarily open up a path for him. Wait. The second madam stood up with a cold face. Young Master Jun, you're Xiao Yi's future husband. So, we're not outsiders. May I ask how my nephew has offended you? Why do you insist on putting him to death? Shouldn't you give me an explanation? Jun Moxie didn't turn around. He insipidly replied, "You can ask the great General Dugu about how he has offended me. I'm glad to tell you that the Huang family would have been annihilated before sunset if it hadn't been for the Dugu family, and the Dugu family. Not even the fowls and dogs would have been spared." Jun Moxie coldly said with his hands clasped behind his back, "You should rejoice." Jun Moxie walked away after he had said this. "Don't touch my brother no matter who you are. You'll have to pay a corresponding price if you do. An unbearable price." The second madam was about to say something when the great General Dugu slapped her across the face. He then scolded, "You slut. You still dare to pester me? You've ruined the Dugu family's reputation. Needless to say, you didn't marry me for a simple purpose, did you?" The second madam was also an intelligent person. She had deduced the whole story from the situation before her eyes. But, she had been stunned by the great general's slap. "Jun Moxie. Jun Dashao. I beg you. Please let my nephew go." The second madam cried out. She couldn't think of a reason to plead for leniency. What condition could she have in order to get the Jun family to open the net on one side? The second madam thought for a long time. Then, she suddenly recalled a family legend. She recklessly called out, "Young Master Jun. Young Master Jun. My Huang family. My Huang family also has an ancestor in the boundless blood sea." Boundless blood sea. Jun Moxie paused in the distance. Then, he slowly said, "Even if his father is the king of the soaring heaven palace, it'll be useless if he dares to touch my brother." Then, he finally left. "You slut. Why aren't you going back to your room? You're disgracing yourself here. Go back to your room and think about your mistakes behind closed doors. Get lost." Dugu Wudi berated loudly. In his heart, he was very fond of this second madam. Therefore, he had agreed to her nephew's request to stay here. He had even bypassed him to directly propose to the old master and the old madam. But, he hadn't expected that such a big incident would occur. Dugu Zongheng's face turned black as he made arrangements. Then, he suddenly shouted at his son, "You're also a bastard. Why didn't you take care of your woman? What's wrong with crying and crying? Dugu Hao, quickly take your mother back to her room. Dugu Wudi, you bastard. Why are you still standing here? Aren't you going to see Tang Yuan? The old man was practically stomping his feet when he said the last sentence. Dugu Wudi suddenly realized that the key to this matter wasn't Jun Moxie. Nor was it the Dugu family. Instead, it was Tang Yuan. On one hand, Jun Moxie was doing this for the sake of Tang Yuan's reputation. On the other hand, he was also thinking about the Dugu family. After all, the two families were future in-laws. Jun Moxie had to take this into consideration. As for his own family, there were only a few people who met him. The key was Tang Yuan. If this matter could be covered up, it would be a great blessing. Even if it could not be completely suppressed, it must not be made public. Once this was made public and old Master Tang found out about it, the consequences would be dire. Therefore, Dugu Wudi complied and hurriedly chased after Jun Moxie. However, both father and son had come to understand one thing through this matter. Dugu Zongheng had said a few words when the news of Jun Moxie killing Mei Gao Jia and Kong Lingyang had arrived. Jun Moxie is a vicious and merciless person. He is a decisive person. So, no one should provoke his women or his family, no matter who it is. Jun Moxie's women and Jun Moxie's family were undoubtedly his reverse scale. Every dragon has a reverse scale. Touch it and you will get angry. You will bleed for 3,000 miles in anger. Now, he had come to a realization. You can't touch Jun Moxie's brothers, except his family and women. Especially his brothers. He had dared to make such a ruckus the first time he went to his father-in-law's house to drink for his brothers. He hadn't given the Dugu family any face. It was a pity that this father and son pair had overlooked another important matter. Perhaps they had overestimated their family's influence. After all, would Fatty not pursue the matter even if Dashao didn't want to? Money could enslave ghosts. It could also communicate with gods. Money was omnipotent in most cases. With Fatty's current net worth and his new status as the capital city's god of wealth, how could this matter be resolved so easily? Old Master Dugu looked at his 6 busy grandchildren. Then, he sighed and said in a low voice, I'm relieved about Xiao Yi's matter. But, I'll be relieved if you can make Jun Moxie recognize you as his brothers. Old Master Dugu's voice had been very soft. So, the 6 brothers hadn't heard him clearly. So, they tilted their ears and asked, What? Grandfather, what did you say? It's nothing. Hurry up and chop this brat. Throw him to the dogs. I get annoyed just by looking at this brat. Dugu Zongheng's interest had waned. I couldn't get angry even after Jun Moxie had caused such a ruckus. A man should be like this. I don't fear the heavens for my brothers. This is a man's courage. A man's loyalty. Dugu Zongheng recalled Jun Moxie's last words. Boundless sea of blood. Even if his father is in the soaring heaven palace, it won't matter if he touches my brother. What an arrogant brat. What an adorable brat. Why did I think that he was a debauchee before? Old Master Dugu shook his head. He was puzzled. Could it be that I've gone senile? Grandfather, are we really going to kill him? Dugu Jia raised his head and asked with a bitter face. He had always been close to his third brother, Dugu Hao. So, he was quite familiar with this distant cousin of his. So, he couldn't do it. Kill. Do it immediately. A fierce look appeared in Dugu Zongheng's eyes. He then said in a heavy tone, This is a military order. The 6 people stood up at the same time. They stood perfectly straight and said, As you command. Dugu Wudi went over. Tang Yuan hadn't woken up yet. His snores were still shaking the heavens. Jun Moxie saw him come in, and understood what he meant. He said, Tang Yuan drank a lot yesterday. So, he might not be able to remember. That's for the best. Dugu Wudi sighed. His dark face had turned somewhat red. He coughed a few times and said, This matter is really. Jun Moxie smiled in astonishment. He hadn't expected that this uncouth man would apologize. He then said, don't worry. I'll tell Tang Yuan not to tell anyone even if he remembers. That's even better. Dugu Wudi wiped his sweat. He then remembered and asked, don't tell me that Tang Yuan doesn't know about this matter. Did you do it on your own? Didn't Tang Yuan come to you to complain? Brothers are important. If I wait for my brother to look for me before I do something, what kind of brother would I be? Would I still be considered a brother? June Moxie smiled faintly. That brat's target was me. Tang Yuan took the blame for me. He brought an undeserved calamity upon himself. I wouldn't be a brother if I remained indifferent. June Moxie smiled faintly. He looked at Tang Yuan's sleeping face. Then, he turned his head to look outside the window and said indifferently, my brother's business is my business. Dugu Wudi's body shook. It seemed as if he had been struck by lightning. June Moxie's words made him think of his most revered elder brother, Jun Wu Hui, and his second brother, Jun Wu Meng. He still remembered the time when the brothers had gone for a walk outside Tianxiang City. They had been in the prime of their lives at that time. His elder brother, Jun Wu Hui, had been standing on a mountaintop at that time. He had been looking at the churning clouds in the distance. He had been moved by the world. So, he had patted Dugu Wudi's shoulder and said, Wu Di, you are my brother. Just like Wu Meng and Wu Yi, you are my brother. Dugu Wu Di still remembered that Jun Wu Hui had been standing on the mountaintop when he had said those words. He had been looking at the vast sky and the boundless sea of clouds. That indifferent tone of his voice had contained a deep brotherly love. That was an oath that he had sworn to defy the heavens. Brother. These were two sacred words. Dugu Wu Di had engraved those words in his mind for the rest of his life. Right now, when Jun Mo Xia said these words, the expression on his face and the demeanor he exuded were exactly the same as Jun Wu Hui's indifferent and resolute attitude back then. There was no difference. In fact, it seemed as if Jun Wu Hui had spoken those words from the side. Even the look in his eyes was exactly the same. Brother. My brother's business is my business. Wu Di, you are my brother. Just like Wu Meng and Wu Yi, you are my brother. Jun Wu Hui's words seemed to echo in his heart. They echoed over and over again. Jun Moxie had disregarded everything for his brother. He had disregarded a colossus like the Dugu family. But, what had he done for his brother? What did he do when he knew that his brother had died a wronged death, that his death was not worth it, and that he had died unjustly? Dugu Wu Di suddenly felt a lump in his throat. It seemed as if he couldn't breathe. A strong emotion rose from the bottom of his heart. He awkwardly coughed a few times. Then, he covered his mouth and rushed out. But, he covered his eyes, and rushed out with his head covered. He didn't say anything. He didn't need to say anything. He only ran all the way back home. He had set up a memorial tablet for Jun Wu Hui. He looked at the cold memorial tablet for a long time. His fingers trembled as he said in a trembling voice, Big brother. Big brother. I miss you. Little brother. I'm sorry. Then, he suddenly burst into tears. He fell to the ground and burst into tears. Chapter 467. By the time Tang Yuan woke up, it was already close to noon the day after the banquet. Fatty abruptly opened his eyes, got up in a roll, and roared, Fuck your grandma, good boy, you dare to plot against your grandpa Tang, just you wait. He held his head and groaned as he cursed. The power of the hangover was unbearable even with his big head. Bang! The aroma of wine filled the air as a cup of fragrant wine was placed under his nose. Then, he heard Jun Mo Xia's voice, You're awake. Drink more wine to sober up. Tang Yuan retched, and raised his tearful eyes, Third young master. My brother, don't torment me, your brother has lost face, now go wash your face, and then come talk to me when you're sober, I have something to say to you. June Moxie snorted, and glared at him. You're really becoming more and more promising. Tang Yuan giggled, and ran out like a wisp of smoke. A maid had already brought the water to wash his face. Fatty refused the moderately hot and cold warm water and dipped his big head directly into the ice-cold wash water. After a long time, he finally raised his head. His big head trembled, and the water splashed all over the floor. Only then did he take the towel and carefully wipe himself up and down. Then, he waved his hand and ordered the maid to leave. Tang Yuan then looked at June Moxie, and grinned. Third young master, I was really drunk yesterday. Yeah, you really drank a lot. June Moxie nodded. Now your head doesn't hurt anymore, right? It doesn't hurt anymore, but I actually can't remember anything about last night. It was just on the tip of my tongue, and it was obviously a very important matter. How come I suddenly can't remember it? Tang Yuan tilted his head, and his face was full of distress. It's fine if you can't remember, it's not a big deal. June Moxie sighed. He nodded without saying a word. If Fatty had kept asking questions after waking up, June Moxie would have been more at ease. However, Tang Yuan immediately said that he couldn't remember anything. June Moxie immediately confirmed that this guy remembered everything. Otherwise, he wouldn't have said that just now. It was just that he didn't want to mention it, at least not now. Both Da Xiao and Tang Yuan knew that it was fine as long as both of them knew it in their hearts. However, if they said it out on the spot, it would be too awkward. Regardless of the time, place, or person, it would be inappropriate. Fatty was not only saving face for himself, but also saving face for June Moxie. After all, this happened in the Dugu family, and June Moxie was almost certain to be the future son-in-law of the Dugu family. This unforeseen event might not necessarily be related to the Dugu family, but Tang Yuan couldn't reveal anything for the sake of his brother. At least, this wasn't the right time. Tang Yuan's chubby face had a silly smile on it as he said, "It's getting late, and we should probably go back. I have to hurry back to inform those fat sheep that have come to participate in the auction to bring enough silver and gold." "Haha, third young master, we'll certainly make a fortune this time." "Humph, as long as you don't stuff your own pockets, I'll give you as much as you want." June Moxie glared at him. Tang Yuan cried out in grievance, "Third young master, I'm such a kind and honest person, I'm not that kind of person." The two burst into laughter, and walked side by side out of the door. Tang Yuan and June Moxie seemed very relaxed as they bid farewell to the Dugu family. They didn't mention anything about last night's drunkenness. On the contrary, Dugu Zongheng's mind was heavy. They were about to go out of the door when they saw a corpse being carried in. It was covered with a white cloth. Tang Yuan's pupils shrank as he took a deep look at the corpse. Then, he turned his head and walked out of the door with June Moxie. June Moxie was flabbergasted as he looked at Tang Yuan. He suddenly felt that this guy seemed to have grown up a lot. He seemed to have matured a lot. This brother of mine is truly a brother of blood. They didn't speak a word the entire way. The two were about to enter the aristocratic hall when Tang Yuan suddenly called out to June Moxie. His chubby face had always been full of smiles, but there wasn't a trace of a smile on it. Instead, there was a rare dignified look on his face. His eyes were emitting a sharp luster. "Third young master, that man's death was your doing, right?" "It was me." June Moxie didn't turn his head. He didn't want to see the expression on Tang Yuan's face. "That brat is dead. So, I'll support you no matter what you plan to do." "Yes, he's dead. But, this matter isn't over yet." Tang Yuan seemed to be clenching his teeth as he spoke. "Who is he?" "The Huang family of the Golden East City," June Moxie replied in a dull tone. A thought emerged in his mind at the same time. The Huang family is finished. Tang Yuan's personality would have made it clear that he wouldn't have given up until he was satisfied with his revenge. With Fatty's current net worth and the influence he had under his control, not to mention a mere Huang family, he could even shake all the big families in Tianxiang. Wealth could enslave ghosts, and even gods. When one's wealth had accumulated to a frightening amount, many things that were difficult to accomplish would become very simple, very easy. Last night's matter was tantamount to an extraordinary shame and humiliation for Tang Yuan. He was the dignified eldest young master of the Tang family. He was the future heir to the aristocratic hall. He was also the new god of wealth of the capital. He had been pushed into a latrine pit. None of these four identities could accept such humiliation. Not even if he was drunk. Not for any other reason. This humiliation could only be washed away with fresh blood. It was obvious that Huang Shulu's life was not enough for Tang Yuan to vent his anger. Therefore, he wanted to take revenge. The Huang family of the Golden East City had tragically become the target of Tang Yuan's revenge. Jun Moxie could imagine how tragic Tang Yuan's revenge would be. In fact, it would be too horrible to look at. It would hurt the peace of the world. After all, there were some innocent people involved. However, Jun Moxie wouldn't stop Tang Yuan from taking revenge. Tang Yuan wouldn't be able to lift his head as long as the Huang family of the Golden East City existed in this world if he didn't take revenge. This was only a psychological problem. But, it would turn into a demon in his heart. The demon in his heart wouldn't go his way. The Huang family of the Golden East City. It's a very big family. Tang Yuan sneered. Then, he spoke in an extremely contemptuous tone, I'll make them satisfied. I've told them to wait for Grandpa Tang. He turned his head and slowly said, Third young master, I need to use the strength of the aristocratic hall. Jun Moxie didn't hesitate. He readily agreed, you don't need to go through me. The manpower of the aristocratic hall will be available to you from now on. This includes the 900 million silver taels. You can call me if the manpower of the aristocratic hall isn't enough. I'll spare no effort to help you. Jun Moxie looked at him deeply, it doesn't matter what you want to do. It doesn't matter. Remember, it's anything. Tang Yuan paused. He sniffed for a long time. Then, he forced a smile and said, you motherfucker, he. I only want to borrow the manpower of the aristocratic hall. I'll use my own method to solve this problem. I won't be satisfied if I use the strength of the third young master. But, I believe that my current strength is enough to deal with many things. Tang Yuan's words were like a metamorphosis. The first half of his words were hesitant. In fact, he was choking with emotion. But, the second half was very clear and fluent. Fatty was able to control his emotions at this moment. The two men stood facing each other for a while. Then, Tang Yuan suddenly asked, what I'm doing is very likely to arouse public anger. And, it could lead to serious consequences. So, why don't you try to persuade me? I'll listen as long as you speak. I'll speak. Will you really listen? Will you feel happy even if you listen? Why would I make my brother unhappy for the sake of an outsider? Jun Moxie replied with a question. He then said in a leisurely manner, I've said it a moment ago. No matter what you want to do, I'll think that you should do it this time. We'll have no choice but to face it together if we attract some formidable opponent. If we can't handle it and die, then so be it. What's the big deal about that? This is how the world is. The weak are prey to the strong. Those with bigger fists are right. There's nothing to say if you're weaker than others. But, if you're stronger than others, why should you swallow your anger? As for what happens in the future, who the fuck is thinking that much? Thinking that far ahead? Do whatever you want. Don't tell me that what I've done in the past has been recognized by the public. Are the consequences small? Since I can do it, why can't my brother? Tang Yuan was silent for a long time. Then, he patted Jun Moxie's shoulder heavily. Good brother. Fatty's big and chubby face suddenly seemed to emit a strange glow. He suddenly grabbed Jun Moxie's hand and said with a smile, let's go. Let's go take a look at my wife's face. Jun Moxie shrugged his shoulders. He was troubled by Fatty's sudden change of expression. He smiled bitterly and followed them in. When Jun Moxie caught sight of Sun Xiaomei's back, he felt as though he was shocked by a celestial being. She was still tall and short. However, her originally thick and sturdy frame had disappeared. In its place was an incomparably graceful figure. She simply stood there, giving off an air of invincibility and grace. She naturally exuded a refreshing aura. He actually felt the urge to commit a crime. Jun Moxie exclaimed in surprise. It had only been 3 months. However, the transformation was so great. It truly gave off a feeling of the blue sea turning into mulberry fields. This feeling was particularly obvious for the couple before him. Fatty Tang's growth from 306 to 524 was already a huge miracle. As for Sun Xiaomei, it was as though she had been reborn. From a burly man, she had transformed into a tall and slender beauty. Hi, beautiful lady. Jun Moxie greeted and walked over. Jun Moxie. The moment Sun Xiaomei heard Jun Moxie's voice, she turned around in surprise. All she heard was Jun Moxie's miserable scream. He said in an anguished tone, how could this be? This is. Looking at someone's back was a crime. However, looking at someone's face was a justifiable defense. It was too terrifying. Chapter 468. He saw that Sun Xiaomei's face was covered with abscesses. Her pimples were like a forest. Moreover, there were more than a dozen hideous mole marks on her face. This wasn't a girl's face. In fact, it couldn't even be considered a human's face. The only thing left on her face was a pair of black and white eyes. And, they were fiercely glaring at Tang Yuan. Oh my god. Jun Moxie drew across with a face full of emotion. Sun Xiaomei, who was at the side, had been ridiculed by these two hateful fellows to the point of almost stamping with rage. Although Sun Xiaomei's body shape had completely changed, her original temperament had not changed at all. Previously, because of Princess Raimu's matter, she had been scolded by Jun Moxie, so she was somewhat afraid of Dashao. But now that she saw him ridiculing her appearance, she could not bear it anymore. Her anger soared to the sky, and she did not care about her fear anymore. She roared, "You two bastards, are you looking for death? Hurry up and help me think of a solution. Are you itching for a beating by continuously ridiculing me? Hee hee, since you dared to ridicule me, then you must have the confidence to cure your face. If you didn't, then you wouldn't have ridiculed me. With Sun Xiaomei's intelligence, why didn't you see it?" Jun Moxie clicked his tongue twice, and looked up and down with his head tilted, but Sun Xiaomei's beauty at this time is really rare. I have to appreciate it carefully, or I'm afraid I won't be able to appreciate it again in the future. Sun Xiaomei was angry and anxious at the same time. She covered her face and stamped her feet. Then, she suddenly raised her foot and kicked Tang Yuan's buttocks. She angrily said, "Fatty Tang, did you bring your brother to see this old woman make a fool of herself? Or did you come to treat this old woman's face? What kind of person do you think I am?" Tang Yuan let out a strange cry. He covered his buttocks and begged, "Third young master, please hurry up and start. I, your poor brother, have been driven crazy by this woman these past few days. Let alone having fun, I don't even have the appetite to eat." Jun Moxie snickered and snapped his fingers. His face was full of smiles as he said, "You truly have the face of a devil and the body of an angel, whoosh." Tang Yuan dashed out. "I'm going to arrange for the auction. Third young master, take your time with your treatment. I believe you'll definitely be cured, holy shit. You're handing your wife over to me just like that? You're really at ease, ah." Jun Mocs screamed. The young master Jun's courage soared to the heavens as he faced this terrifying face alone. But, he was still worried in his heart. Ha! I can't take advantage of my friend's wife. How can I not have confidence in Dashao? Besides, if her face had recovered, perhaps I really wouldn't be at ease to hand her over to a big pervert like you. But now, if you like her, then you're really capable. Tang Yuan's voice came from afar. His last sentence was almost inaudible, so mean. June Moxie sighed. He hooked his finger and whistled lightly. His body swayed as he said, "Girl, come here. Let Big Brother have a look." With a schwa sound, a saber light flashed, and June Mocie's finger was nearly chopped off. June Moxie laughed and dodged. What a fierce girl. Fatty's future life would definitely be very happy. June Moxie finally completed the first treatment for young Lady Sun after a long time. Young Lady Sun's illness wasn't that serious. In fact, it was purely a serious endocrine disorder. There was no room for excretion. So, all the poisonous gas had gathered on her face, and couldn't come out. In this era, this was truly an incurable disease. But to June Moxie, it was a very relaxing and pleasant experience. This illness couldn't be compared to the old illnesses of Third Master June and Old Man Dugu. In fact, it was a piece of cake. The art of unlocking heaven's fortune carried a high degree of spiritual energy. So, it circulated through the meridians above Sun Xiaomei's neck. Then, the spiritual energy pressed down on her face. Sun Xiaomei felt a cool sensation on her face. It was extremely comfortable. But, this comfortable feeling only lasted for a moment. Then, she felt as if 10,000 ants were crawling on her face. And, it was incomparably uncomfortable. The pustules on Sun Xiaomei's face had started to show signs of rupture by the time June Moxie withdrew his hand. In fact, many of them were oozing with pus. June Moxie stretched out his hands several times. But, he was too embarrassed to do it himself. So, he asked young Lady Sun to get herself a basin of water, and washed her face by himself. Sun Xiaomei tried to wash her face with cold water. But, she suddenly felt that her face was wrinkled and uncomfortable. Many of the pustules had also ruptured. And, they were extremely itchy. So, she couldn't help but scratch them. But, she felt as if she had pulled off a thin layer of something from her face. She opened her eyes, and saw that a layer of skin had been peeled off from her face. It was a layer of unbearably filthy skin. Sun Xiaomei cried out in alarm. Then, she threw it away. But, she couldn't help but touch her face. And, she felt that the skin on her face had become much smoother. She was pleasantly surprised. So, she washed her face as fast as she could. Then, she rushed over to the mirror to take a look. There were still some red spots on the woman's face in the mirror. But, the outline of her face was very clear. And, it wasn't as frightening as it had been a moment ago. In fact, it was like the difference between heaven and earth. In fact, most of her fair and smooth skin had already been exposed. The effect is so fast. Sun Xiaomei stared blankly in front of the mirror for a long time. After a long time, 2 clear streams of tears flowed down uncontrollably. June Moxie sighed behind her and said, "At most, you'll need 2 more times. Then, your face will truly transform into the beautiful face that you should have. I believe that there will be another peerless beauty in the Imperial City. When you go out with Xiao Yi and Raimu in the future, you'll be like an orchid and a chrysanthemum. Each of you has your own advantages. You'll have 300% of people turning their heads to look at you. What a pity. Such a beautiful woman is actually Tang Yuan's fiancée. This is simply burning the zither and cooking the crane. It's such a waste of the scenery. Beautiful woman, why don't you follow me? I'll let you be my 99th concubine." Dashao's miraculous hands could bring the dying back to life. His words were getting more and more outrageous. The first half of his words were quite pleasant to the ears. They sounded like words of a human. But the second half was quite beastly. Go to hell. Sun Xiaomei forgot about her sadness. She felt ashamed and resentful at the same time. Then, she mercilessly punched the benefactor, who was teasing her. Jun Moxie laughed heartily. He was overjoyed. After a long time, Sun Xiaomei suddenly let out a long sigh and said, Jun. Third young master, words cannot express my gratitude. You're Fatty's brother. I won't say too many polite words. I just want to hear one thing from you. Is it possible to reduce the weight of Fatty's body? I'm really worried now. With Fatty's body size, once he's over 30 years old. This is really a couple. Damn it. This one brought me here to treat the other's face. Then, the other one turned around and asked me to help this one lose weight. It's indeed dangerous. If you want him to lose weight, you'll need his full cooperation. Only then is it possible. Speaking of this problem, Jun Moxie also had a headache. How is this guy going to lose weight if he eats so much? Not to mention the meat and soup he eats, just the white steamed buns he eats 100 or so a day. Is this fucking human? Lose weight? Dream on. I beg you, you must help him lose weight. If he continues to gain weight, he'll definitely lose his life. Sun Xiaomei raised her head solemnly and looked at Jun Moxie with a worried expression. Fatty once said, if my face recovers, he'll take the initiative to call off the engagement. No matter who he is or what kind of person he is, he, in my eyes, is a good man. I really hope to be able to be with him, live a good life, hold your hand, and grow old together. As Sun Xiaomei said this, a faint blush appeared on her face. Fatty is a good man. When did that damned Fatty become so noble? Isn't this too much of a myth? Jun Moxie raised his eyebrows in surprise and probed. It's really difficult for this damned Fatty to lose weight, and he's so ugly. Once your face recovers, you'll become a peerless beauty whose beauty can cause the downfall of nations. Since Fatty is willing to call off the engagement, why don't you take the opportunity to gain your freedom? Any other man should be more pleasing to the eye than Fatty, right? We're all acquaintances here, so I'm just stating the truth. Jun Moxie, when Fatty said that he wanted to call off the engagement, I could see that he was sincere. But from what you're saying now, I can also hear it. Sun Xiaomei regained her composure and wiped away her tears. She looked at Jun Moxie. Are you testing me on behalf of your brother? In your hearts, am I, Sun Xiaomei, such a fickle woman? Am I really that unbearable? About that. Jun Moxie felt a little awkward. He rubbed his nose and didn't say anything. Tang Yuan is just a little fat, and his appearance isn't outstanding. I believe that as long as it's a woman, no one will think that Tang Yuan is good-looking. But although Tang Yuan is fat, he's a real man, a real man. I'm glad about this. When I heard that I was going to be engaged to Tang Yuan, I argued with my father and refused to marry that notorious damned Fatty no matter what. So what if I'm ugly? At most, I'll just spend the rest of my life in seclusion. But after getting along with him for the past few months, I've changed my mind. Sun Xiaomei said softly, her eyes blurred. It doesn't matter if he's a good person, a bad person, a hooligan, or an evil tyrant. In any case, I've decided on him. Whether he succeeds in losing weight or not, I'm already destined to be Mrs. Tang. I'm willing. If he's an official, I'll be his wife. If he's a businessman, I'll carry the weight for him. If he's a beggar, I'll carry the dog-beating stick for him. Fatty is a good man, I like him. Sun Xiaomei raised her head and looked at Jun Moxie. She said slowly, no matter if he's rich or poor, handsome or ugly, I'm willing to accompany him for the rest of my life. If my fate is disturbed because of my appearance, I'd rather not have my face healed. At that time, one of us will be crippled while the other will be incomplete. We'll be a good match. Chapter 469. Good. Well said. Jun Moxie's countenance turned solemn. He couldn't help but cheer. He took 2 steps forward, and said in a deep voice, Jun Moxie, thank you on behalf of my brother, sister-in-law. Then, Jun Moxie turned around, and walked away with large strides. He was very happy in his heart. He was sincerely happy for Tang Yuan at this moment. If he's an official, I'll be his wife. If he's a businessman, I'll be his wait. If he's a beggar, I'll beat dogs with a dog-beating stick. This kind of love was what every man dreamed of. Tang Yuan's life wouldn't have been in vain if he could have such a love. You still haven't told me if there's a way to make him lose weight? Sun Xiaomei anxiously shouted from behind. Jun Moxie stood with his back facing her. He extended his hand, and made an okay gesture above his head. Then, he laughed heartily. I said it's possible, so it's possible. There's nothing in this world that I, Jun Moxie, can't do. But, you mustn't feel sorry for him when you see him in pain. Moreover, I hope that you'll remember what you've said today for the rest of your life. I'm very serious about it. Jun Moxie's figure disappeared in front of her. Sun Xiaomei was still standing in the same place. She suddenly snorted and said, What do you mean by, I hope that you'll remember what you've said today for the rest of your life? You're very serious. Do you think this great aunt is a child's play? Do you think I can joke around with my feelings? What a joke. This great aunt isn't a man. But, I'm still responsible for my own heart. Tang Yuan was issuing orders non-stop. The orders were issued from his mouth like floating clouds and flowing water. Then, the people that Hai Chen-feng had arranged in the aristocratic hall obeyed his orders. Then, they quickly got up and went out to convey Tang Yuan's orders to every corner of the continent through different channels. Jun Moxie had heard a few words. He could tell that the bone-tempering pills that Tang Yuan was auctioning this time were aimed at the Xian-Qi aristocratic families. The bone-tempering pill was an elixir that was tailor-made for Xian and martial artists. Tang Yuan's goal this time was very clear. However, it would be very difficult for those Xian-Qi families to transport so much gold and silver here. Jun Mo Xia suddenly thought of an idea. Those people would certainly bring their silver notes to Tianxiang City to exchange for gold and silver. So, wouldn't I be able to take advantage of the situation and loot the house when it's in trouble? For example, 1,000 taels of silver can only be exchanged for 800 taels of silver. Hee, this is a business opportunity. Tang Yuan finally finished his work after a long while. Only Song Shang, Hai Chen-feng, and Jun Moxie were left in the hall. Finally, Tang Yuan's complexion turned gloomy. His eyes swept over Hai Chen-feng and Song Shang. A dignified look appeared on his face as he slowly said, Now, I'm going to announce an important decision. Hai Chen-feng and Song Shang rolled their eyes. It was always their turn to do the hard work every time Tang Yuan spoke like this. It seemed that this time would be no exception. Attack the Huang family of Golden East City from all the commercial channels, including water and land. Use all the connections you can and can't use. Use all the light and dark methods. Regardless of the cost, regardless of the loss, make the Huang family go bankrupt in the shortest time possible. Tang Yuan said word by word. Hai Chen-feng, please use your connections to mobilize the underground forces of the Golden East City. Use every means possible to harass, strike, intimidate, kidnap, and blackmail the Huang family of the Golden East City. Kill all the officials of the Golden East City if they dare to help the Huang family. I will bear all the consequences. Tang Yuan's fat face was overflowing with an unusual murderous look. Lenglang smiled and said, Wait until the Huang family is desperate. Then, bring them to me. So this time, how much is the estimated cost? Hai Chen-feng frowned and said worriedly, After all, we're going to attack a powerful family in such a short time. Can our aristocratic hall afford it? How did the Huang family of the Golden East City offend this smiling Maitreya Buddha? But, he's actually as vicious as a jackal and wolf in his heart. This Huang family is really unlucky. You, me, and the aristocratic hall will be the ones to invest this time. All the manpower, material, and financial resources. I'll also throw in the Tang family if that's not enough. I'll also be the future lord of the Tang family. Tang Yuan's eyes emitted an extreme ferocity as he spoke in a low and hysterical voice. Young Master Yuan, does my master know about this? Song Shang frowned. I know. And, I support it with all my strength. Everything will be carried out in accordance with Tang Yuan's instructions. Tang Yuan is the chief shopkeeper of the aristocratic hall. So, his orders are the highest decision. There's no need to question it. And, you can't question it. Jun Moxie said indifferently. He was leaning against the door. But, no one in the room would have noticed his presence if he hadn't made a sound. Hai Chenfeng and Song Shang promptly stood up to greet him. There's no problem if that's the case, Hai Chenfeng calmly went through the procedure in his mind. Then, he replied with confidence. Can I ask one more question, why is that? There's no why. Do we need a reason? Tang Yuan's facial muscles twitched as he clenched his teeth. Of course we don't need a reason. Jun Moxie slowly walked in. He looked at Tang Yuan, but, Fatty, I want to remind you of one thing. We can be crazy, we can be evil, and we can ignore the people of the world. We can regard all living beings as worthless weeds. But, we can't lose our conscience. We want to take revenge. But, we can't go too far. We've already killed people who provoked us. However, there's a limit to how much we can do. The Huang family doesn't discipline them well. The others are innocent in this matter. We're only venting your anger. I hope that you can control this limit. You said that you want to see them when they're at their most miserable. I hope that you understand. Of course, I won't stop you if you insist on killing them and exterminating their entire family. Jun Moxie slowly said, because you're my brother. I'll accompany you even if I have to become a demon in hell. Tang Yuan's face twitched in pain. He looked gloomy, but didn't say anything. After a long while, he said in a hoarse voice, don't worry. I just want them to know that they're not the only ones who have to bear the consequences of their wrongdoings. Of course, I don't mind exterminating them if they don't know what's good for them. Jun Moxie chuckled. He patted his shoulder, but didn't say anything. You know that I'm just venting my anger. But, you're giving me 900 million silver taels. All of your assets. Tang Yuan suddenly became excited. Because you're my brother. So, I'll accompany you in your madness. Can 900 million silver taels buy a Tang Yuan? If it can, I'll take it back immediately. Jun Moxie smiled mischievously. Tang Yuan abruptly turned around and laughed out loud. However, he choked on his sobs and started coughing. Hai Chenfeng and Song Shang looked at each other. Their eyes were filled with emotion. He's throwing 900 million silver taels for his brother's sake. What kind of brother is this? Throughout the ages, how many people would throw 900 million silver taels for their own brother? Emperor? Is that possible? No. This is 900 million silver taels. It's not 9. It's not 9. It's not 9. It's not 9. Tianxiang is such a big country. But, its national treasury doesn't even have 100 million silver taels. Tianxiang's national treasury doesn't even have this number for 10 years. Then, it's all for one person. There are people who would risk their lives for their friends. But, 900 million silver taels can build a city with just this much silver. This has never happened since ancient times. They didn't say anything. Instead, they quietly went out to arrange the things that Fatty had instructed them to do. Only the two brothers were left in the room, June Moxie was behind them. He said in a dull tone, each of you should take one bone-tempering pill first. Feel its effects. I reckon that it should improve your reflexes by a lot. Hai Chen-feng and Song Shang were overjoyed. They thanked him in unison. Tang Yuan finally let out a sigh of relief as he watched them leave. He collapsed on the chair as if he had exhausted all his strength. He covered his face with his hands. After a while, the fat man suddenly jumped up and looked around sneakily. He walked to the door and poked his head out. Then, he closed all the windows with a serious look. He took advantage of this opportunity to wipe the corners of his eyes with his sleeves. He thought that June Moxie hadn't seen it. But, June Moxie also thought that he hadn't seen it. What are you doing? Why are you being so sneaky? June Moxie looked at him strangely. Don't worry. I'm here. I believe that Shin Xian won't be able to eavesdrop on our conversation even if he's a great master. That's good. Tang Yuan moved closer in a secretive manner. Third young master, there seems to be something wrong with you recently. What's wrong? June Moxie raised his eyebrows. There's something wrong with the royal family. To be precise, there's something wrong with the emperor himself. Tang Yuan's breathing became somewhat rapid. You've been plotting against you ever since you came from the southern heaven city. It can be said that everything has been prepared. They've been waiting for you to return. And, they've been ready to kill you. But, you started a massacre at the gates of the Tianxiang city after you returned. Then, you forcibly seized many of the Meng family's properties. Then, more than 30 officials were strangely killed. And, those people were the ones who had attacked you the most. I believe that even an idiot would know that it was you who did it. This is a crime punishable by the extermination of the entire family. But, there hasn't been any movement from the emperor's side. Don't you think it's strange? Should I think it's strange? June Moxie propped up his chin and assumed a thinker pose. But, His Majesty hasn't gone to court since the day you returned. Tang Yuan said worriedly, Third young master, you may have to be mentally prepared. The June family is in the limelight now. But, His Majesty may have a way to uproot the June family if he wants to. The strength of an entire country may not be able to be matched by an individual. Chapter 470. The Tang family has always been a direct descendant of the royal family, and my grandfather has always been loyal to His Majesty. Our Tang family is bound to follow His Majesty. Tang Yuan frowned and was a little distressed. My grandfather has always fought alongside His Majesty. If His Majesty really wants to deal with the June family, my grandfather. Tang Yuan gritted his teeth. He will definitely stand on His Majesty's side. I understand. June Moxie patted Tang Yuan's shoulder comfortingly. I won't hurt him. Thank you. Tang Yuan felt a weight lifted from his heart. Oh. You've learned to say thank you to me? You're awesome. Do you feel better now? June Moxie looked at him from the corner of his eyes. Hee, we're brothers. I didn't want to say those words to you, but we're brothers, and I will certainly stand on your side, but... Tang Yuan's expression was very serious. Fatty, you also know that my wish is for my family and brothers to be safe and happy. My brother's family is naturally included in that wish. If you say thank you or something like that, then that would be an outsider. The young master chuckled. We're all good brothers for life. That's right. Fatty's originally serious face instantly changed, and he scratched his head in embarrassment. He suddenly became very nervous. Third young master, that thing, you must not let my family know, and especially not let Sun Xiaomei know. Otherwise, I won't be able to face anyone. What can't let others know? You mean, that thing of yours? This is bad. June Moxie jumped up in surprise and paced around the room. Why didn't you say so earlier? When I blurted it out just now, she found out by accident. Aya, this whole thing. I thought that the two of you would be fine, I didn't think. Sigh. This is my fault, my fault. Why am I so stupid? At first, Tang Yuan thought he was joking. But when he saw the annoyed expression on his face, it didn't look like he was faking it. Tang Yuan's heart sank and his fat face darkened. He leaned against the corner of the wall and slowly slid down. With a glimmer of hope, he asked weakly, really? Of course it's true. Why would I lie to you about this? Look at my mouth. June Moxie's face was full of regret. With a plop, Tang Dashao finally fell to the ground. His eyes were confused. He wanted to cry but had no tears. It's over. I'm finished, June Moxie said painfully, hurry up and say something nice. It's not too late. When I came here, she was about to go to the Tang family, ah. June Mo Xia chuckled mischievously as he beckoned for a maid to brew a pot of tea. Then, he crossed his legs and swayed his toes as he hummed a tune. Back then, when I first opened my team, there were only a dozen people and 7 or 8 guns. Suddenly, he frowned and said, there's something seriously wrong with the lyrics. How come there were only 7 or 8 guns for a dozen people? Was there a female soldier among them? Suddenly, he heard Tang Yuan's cry from afar. It's really nothing. I swear to God. Really nothing. If you don't believe me, you can ask third young master. I just wanted to see you. It's really nothing. If I lied to you, I would have been impotent on the night of our wedding. You should believe me now. Then, an angry voice said angrily, since it's nothing, why are you apologizing to me? You actually want me not to go home and tell you that you're dead? What exactly did you do that you're dead meat just by saying it? Where's June Moxie? Where's June Moxie? Call him here. No. I'll go find him. I want to ask clearly. Then, the sound of footsteps was heard. It was mixed with Fatty Tang's blood-curdling screams and begging, my great-aunt, my dear grandmother, my mother, please spare me this time, you didn't do anything wrong. Why are you begging for mercy? I. Third young master. You've killed me. You've played me to death. Mother. Fatty Tang screamed to the heavens. June Moxie smiled mischievously. Damn it. You've made my mood so heavy. I'll let your wife teach you a good lesson this time. Therefore, he walked out with a righteous look on his face and shouted, what are you doing? What are you doing? Didn't you go out to drink wine? Why are you making such a fuss about it? I'm really puzzled. Sun Xiaomei stared blankly for a moment. Then, she turned around and pulled Tang Yuan's ear. What the hell? Fatty. Didn't you say that you accompanied third young master to the Dugu family? So, you went to drink wine with women. You're good. You're good. You're good. Tang Yuan wanted to cry, but he had no tears. How can I explain? It's not right to explain. But, it's even worse if I don't explain, so, he started to cry at the top of his lungs, my dear wife, look at my belly. How can I drink wine with women? Is there a girl willing to accompany me? I'll squash them to death. June Moxie chuckled. Then, he said, I suddenly remembered something. Then, his body flashed, and he disappeared without a trace. He had escaped without a trace, he could only hear the sounds of punches and kicks from behind. June Mo Xia felt very refreshed in his heart. Then, he floated out of the street with a whooshing sound. Suddenly, he faintly felt that someone was following him. So, he quickened his pace, and made a few turns. Then, he used the yin-yang escape, and disappeared in broad daylight, his body couldn't be seen. But, he was still in his original place. He had only escaped into the air. But, there was no abnormality in front or behind him for a long time. So, June Moxie started to wonder if he was being paranoid. Then, a green light suddenly flashed. And, June Moxie suddenly felt an eerie chill in his surroundings. This feeling felt as if he was walking in a dense forest, and had been nailed by a poisonous snake. His whole body felt cold from the top of his head to the bottom of his spine, and then to the bottom of his feet. It felt as if an extremely venomous snake was lying on top of him. To June Moxie, this kind of feeling was extremely familiar. He suddenly recalled the time when the cold-blooded Master Lei Wu Bei had fought with the Qian Sun Serpent Queen in the Tianfa forest. The Snake King's aura had been so awe-inspiring when he had first appeared on the scene. June Moxie understood a lot of things in that split second. That green light had searched the area within a 500-foot radius in a flash. Then, it shot up into the sky with a schwa sound. It had soared to a height of more than 100 feet. Then, it looked around with its sharp eyes. It floated down after a long time. Then, it waved its sleeves, and the green light flashed. Then, it disappeared without a trace. June Moxie looked at it with an amiable expression. It was the younger sister of the white-clothed girl, the green-clothed girl, Mei Qian. June Moxie had already determined that Mei Qian was the Snake King of the Tianfa forest. The Qian Sun. I had felt that something was wrong when I had seen these two sisters on the road. Then, they had mysteriously disappeared after arriving at Tianxiang City. Now, they are following me. What are they planning to do? What do they want from me? Perhaps they are plotting something against the June family. The Beast Kings of Tianfa have the skills of a great master. They've left Tianfa's base, and traveled thousands of miles to follow me to Tianxiang. Could it be that they've discovered my secret? June Moxie activated the Hongjun Pagoda's aura, and the art of unlocking the heavens fortune locked onto him. Then, he invisibly chased in a certain direction. That misty green light flickered a few times, and in the blink of an eye, it had changed at least a dozen positions. Then, like a sharp arrow shot from a powerful crossbow, it shot out with a whoosh sound. The speed of the Qian Sun Serpent Queen was extremely fast. In fact, it seemed as if she had turned into a meteor-like phantom. In fact, her green dress seemed as if it was about to ignite in the air. The Snake King didn't have the slightest scruple even though it was broad daylight. She was very confident that an ordinary person wouldn't be able to see her even if they were to come face to face with her speed. At best, they would only feel as if there was a sudden cool breeze blowing past them. Apart from that, they would not feel anything else. I'm sure that even a Xian Qi expert wouldn't be able to see me as long as they haven't reached the level of Tianxian. Even Tianxian would need to make preparations in advance. So, he would need to adjust his spirit to the best condition. He would need to concentrate on his eyes. Moreover, he would need to pay full attention to the path that I must pass through in order to be able to find me. If he really wants to track me, the Qian Sun Serpent Queen was confident that even the solitary eagle, who was widely acknowledged to be unparalleled in Qinggong, might not be able to catch up with her in a short period of time. This is the innate skill of the Snake King. This is a super speed that no ordinary human can experience. In the blink of an eye, the Qian Sun Serpent Queen had already left the city. The most noteworthy thing was that when the Snake King left the city, she directly leaped over the city wall. It was as if the 5 to 6 feet tall city wall was like a flat ground to her. She shot out like an arrow released from a bow. In fact, the city wall was also like a flat ground to the Snake King. The Snake King didn't borrow any force to fly several tens of feet in the air. Her flying speed didn't slow down at all. However, the distance between her body and the ground was getting lower and lower. The moment she reached the lowest point, she suddenly tapped the grass with the tip of her toes and accelerated again. Behind her, a withered grass was swaying gently. She's indeed the Qian Sun Serpent Queen. June Moxie, who was following behind while invisible, exclaimed in admiration. If it were a human, perhaps no one would be able to achieve this kind of speed and agility so naturally. He believed that the solitary eagle wouldn't be able to do it either. After all, the solitary eagle was a human. This was an innate skill that only the supreme beast kings of the Tian Fa forest possessed. It was impossible to learn it. The Snake King was madly galloping along the way. So, she had already traveled more than 10 kilometers away from the city within a short period of time. She saw that there was a mountain forest in front of her. Moreover, the forest had gradually become denser. However, her slender body suddenly came to a halt while she was galloping at full speed. Then, she rose into the sky with a schwa sound. She then rose into the sky like a rocket. In that instant, she suddenly turned her head around. A pure and charming face appeared in the air just like that. Her green robes fluttered in the wind. She had an otherworldly fairy aura and a cold murderous intent. Her eyes were black and white. She looked behind her with endless killing intent. The Serpent King's imposing aura swept out in all directions. All the flowers and trees in front of her collapsed. Chapter 471. Jun Moxie's body, which was concealed in the air, was forcefully pushed out by this violent momentum. Like a kite with a broken string, he fell dozens of feet away. He couldn't help but exclaim in his heart. Fortunately, he had concealed himself. Otherwise, he would have been exposed. Snake King was indeed a character who was on par with the 8 great masters. After a long time, Qian Sun's Serpent Queen didn't find anything unusual. She couldn't help but exclaim in surprise, "I clearly felt that someone was following me. How could there be nothing? Was it really an illusion? It shouldn't be. How could I have an illusion?" She looked carefully again, and finally confirmed that no one was following her. Then, her body flashed, and she directly landed. There was still no movement in the bushes, but she had already concealed herself, and quietly looked at the path she came from. Her expression was so confident, so quiet. It seemed that she could stay like this until the end of time. If someone was following her, and found that she had disappeared after such a long time, they would definitely come out to check. But once they came out, they would be attacked by Snake King. Snake King was confident that he could wait for this person to come out. But she waited for a long time, but no one came. She watched as the red sun slowly slanted to the west, but there was still no movement. Could it be that my feeling was wrong? Qian Sun's Serpent Queen muttered to herself doubtfully. 2 hours had passed. If someone was really following her, even if the person had reached a higher level than the great masters, he would still have to come out to check the situation. Unfortunately, Snake King didn't know that the person she was waiting for was not far from her. The evil monarch, the king of assassins, if he didn't have extraordinary patience, he would have already died 800 times. Not to mention that Da Xiao was currently in the state of yin-yang escape. The enemy was in the light, and he was in the dark. However, Jun Moxie and Jun Daxiao's current thoughts were quite different. He was looking at the figure of Snake King who was lying on the ground with interest. He couldn't help but exclaim in his heart, "That little butt is really perky and perky. It must feel first class, no, it should be super class. I really want to pat it and rub it. I wonder which one feels better compared to that little fellow." After a long while, the Snake King finally decided to give up since she hadn't discovered anything. However, she still didn't let down her guard. Her body was still crouching. However, she suddenly started to retreat at a rapid speed. She looked like a big fish swimming through the grass. Then, she didn't know when she had turned her head around. She sped up with a schwa sound, and the grass parted without any warning. Then, her figure disappeared into the dense grass. In the early winter, not a single blade of grass was rubbed off by her. Jun Mo Xia smiled faintly, and continued to calmly follow them. You can defend against tracking, you can defend against people, you can defend against beasts, but can you defend against spirits? And now that Jun Moxie was using the yin-yang escape, not only was his movement speed godly, he was even more ethereal than a spirit. However, the Snake King's spirit demon hadn't left the forest the entire way. In fact, she had been extremely suspicious the entire time. She had changed directions several hundred times, and had used countless techniques. But, she still hadn't been able to get rid of the subtle feeling that she was being followed. This kind of helplessness almost caused this Supreme Beast King of Tian Fa to collapse. It was only the Beast King's extraordinary senses that allowed them to sense the young master's miraculous sense of tracking. This was probably what we call the instinct of a beast, or the sixth sense, or intuition. With the ingenuity of Jun Moxie's yin-yang escape, if he were to purely follow a human expert, he would probably not be discovered even if he followed him to his bed. For example, if Jun Moxie had followed the solitary eagle king would definitely have foolishly brought this uninvited guest back to his nest without anyone noticing. But the fact that the Qian Sun serpent queen was able to clearly sense that she was being followed was already very surprising to Jun Moxie. Finally, the Snake King, who was on the verge of collapsing, let out a clear whistle and stepped onto the top of a large tree. He raised his voice and said, "May I ask which expert is following me? What advice do you have? Please show yourself. If you have any requests, this little girl will consider it." The empty mountain was silent. There was no response, not even a drop of water. The Qian Sun serpent queen was both angry and anxious. If she continued forward, it would be the place where the two sisters were resting. If this mysterious tracker really followed her all the way there, then she would lose all her face all the way back to the Tian Fa forest. She had lured the enemy over in front of Boss, but she didn't even know who it was. What the hell is this? At this moment, a clear and indifferent voice sounded. "Qian Sun, what's wrong? Why are your thoughts in such a mess? Are you sure someone is following you? Even if someone is really following you, you don't need to be so flustered and confused." Following this clear and indifferent voice, an incomparably graceful white figure suddenly appeared, like a fairy from the 9 heavens descending to the human world. The moment she appeared, the entire forest and the entire area seemed to have become overflowing with celestial qi. Even the grass and trees seemed to be filled with spirituality. Qian Sun lightly swept down from the top of the tree with a face full of shame. Today, she didn't disguise herself. She still had her fairy-like beauty. Standing in front of the white-clothed woman, Mei Shuyan, the pair of sisters complimented each other. The white-clothed woman, Mei Shuyan, was full of grace and peerless elegance, but the Qian Sun serpent queen looked more playful and cute. "Sister, you don't know this, but I've always been able to clearly feel that someone is following me, but I've tried hundreds of methods and tried all the secret techniques I know, but this feeling still exists. It's not scary to be followed, and it's not a big deal that I can't sense it. That's because the other party's method is brilliant, but that inexplicable fear of the unknown almost makes me collapse. Even with Sister's magical power, even if you personally follow me and use all your strength, I'm still confident that I can see through you. In this sense, I'm also a little uncertain now. Sister, do you think I'm really being paranoid? How can there be such an expert in the heavenly world? How can there be such remarkable methods?" The Snake King had always been calm and collected. But, her face revealed a sincere expression of exhaustion. She then said in a rather hesitant manner, "Silly sister, with your cultivation, you can be regarded as a top powerhouse in today's world. Such indecisiveness and suspicion really shouldn't happen to you." The girl in white smiled and said, "Since you feel that someone is following you, then there must be someone. That intuition is the innate ability of us Xian beasts. There's no doubt about this. I think it's just that the method of the person following you is higher. There's a saying among humans that makes a lot of sense. There's always someone better than you. You're confident that you can see through my tracking, but can't there be someone better than me in this world? Sister, you mean, this person is a master among masters? He might even be better than you. A fierce look flashed in the eyes of Qian Sun Serpent Queen, and she was eager to try. The girl in white smiled and said, whether he's better than me or not, it's hard to say. It's hard to say if he's better than me. Let's go. No matter why this person is following you, since he's following you, he must have his purpose. Along the way, he hasn't shown up at all. I think he won't show up in a short period of time. I believe that even if we completely ignore him, as long as the time is right, he will automatically jump out. Come, tell me, what's your harvest from this trip? As she said that, the girl in white smiled as if nothing was in her heart. Her eyes turned slightly, and she pulled the hand of Qian Sun Serpent Queen, like two little girls coming out to play. After a few steps, they sat down under a big tree. Jun Moxie and Jun Dashao, who were in a state of concealment, were groaning inwardly. Initially, he was hiding about 40 to 50 feet away from where the Snake King had just been. However, for some reason, he suddenly felt an extremely strong pressure in his heart. It was a pressure that he was unable to resist even though he had made several breakthroughs in his strength. It was as if a great danger was about to befall him if he continued to forcefully stay where he was. His heart was extremely stifled. Jun Moxie had never doubted his intuition. This inexplicable faith had saved the evil monarch countless times. So the moment this feeling rose, he silently attached himself to a big tree. Yin Yang escape technique. The moment he hid himself in the big tree, the girl in white suddenly appeared, then, whether it was intentional or not, the girl in white pulled the Qian Sun Serpent Queen and actually sat down at the root of the big tree that he had attached himself to. This was really good. Jun Moxie and Jun Dashao didn't dare to move at all. Even if he was still in the state of yin-yang escape technique, he still didn't dare to move recklessly. Because as long as he moved, there would definitely be a fluctuation of qi. Even if the fluctuation of qi was very small, it was obvious that the two girls under the tree were not ordinary people at such a close distance. There was no doubt that he would be discovered. He couldn't even change the state of his technique. If he wanted to escape into the void, he would need a moment of time, but there was no such time right now. Moreover, Jun Moxie couldn't be sure whether the girl in white pulled the Qian Sun Serpent Queen to sit under this tree on purpose or not. If it was intentional, Jun Moxie didn't dare to move. Fortunately, the reputation of the King of Assassins in Jun Dashao's previous life wasn't just for show. Not to mention hiding for a while, it wouldn't be a problem for him to hide for 3 to 5 hours, or even 3 to 5 days. An outstanding assassin was always used to waiting in loneliness. The eyes of the girl in white were deep in thought. She firmly believed that her intuition towards the Snake King was right. With the cultivation of the Snake King, coupled with the innate intuition of a mystical beast, it would only be a joke if she was still suspicious. If there was a feeling, then there was a feeling. There was no other explanation. So she was sure that someone was following them. But what really surprised her was that even she couldn't be sure if that person really existed. Not to mention finding out the whereabouts of the person who was tracking them. Chapter 472. As for why Mei Xuan had chosen to sit under this tree, it was only because of her intuition. She had felt that there was something wrong with this place because of her instinct as a Xian beast. In fact, she felt that there was something strange about this place. But, she couldn't explain it with words. I feel that this boy is getting more and more mysterious this time. Qian Sun Serpent Queen had finally let go of the doubts in her heart for the time being. Perhaps it was because she had her most trustworthy elder sister, Mei Xuan, by her side. That was because she had an incomparable sense of security when she was with her elder sister. It didn't matter whether someone was tracking them or not. In fact, she wouldn't need to be afraid even if the Emperor of Heaven was tracking her as long as she was with her elder sister. Mysterious? What do you mean? Mei Shuyan's beautiful face didn't have much change in expression. She merely knitted her eyebrows. Yes. I heard that this guy went crazy after we left the city gate. He used the most brutal and bloody method to stop the rumors. Then, he brazenly dispatched his guards in the afternoon, and seized all the properties of the Meng family. Then, he killed the masterminds of this incident that very night. They were the most famous scholars in Tianxiang. And, nearly 30 officials were also killed along with them. Moreover, the imperial family didn't react to this. Then, they went to the Dugu family to discuss the marriage. And, they unexpectedly discussed the marriage. Qian Sun Serpent Queen hadn't finished speaking when she was interrupted by Mei Shuyan. Discuss the marriage? What marriage did they go to the Dugu family to discuss? Mei Shuyan's complexion was as cold as ice as she said these words. What marriage? Of course, it's to discuss the marriage between Jun Moxie and Dugu Xiaoyi in the Dugu family. Snake King looked at his elder sister in astonishment. Oh. I thought it was about Jun Mo Xia and Guan Qinghan's marriage. You scared me. I was wondering why their marriage would be discussed at the Dugu family's place. You little girl, you didn't explain it clearly. Why didn't you explain it earlier? Mei Shuyan looked at her in rebuke. Snake King's brain short-circuited for a moment. Why would they discuss Guan Qinghan's marriage when they were in the Dugu family? Wasn't this a joke? How did Big Sister think about it? She was too imaginative, wasn't she? What happened next? Something interesting must have happened since you're keeping us in suspense, right? Mei Shuyan solemnly asked. That's right. A group of men got drunk, and one of Jun Moxie's brothers, Tang Yuan, was plotted against. He was pushed into a latrine pit. Big Sister, you don't know this, but that Tang Yuan was fat. I think he weighed at least 250 pounds. Jun Moxie had a fit in the Dugu family because of this matter. He didn't care about his in-laws in order to avenge his brother. He forced the Dugu family to kill their nephew, didn't care about their in-laws in the slightest. Mei Shuyan looked at the clouds in the sky in a leisurely manner. Then, she indifferently said, it seems that the marriage has been discussed. Snake King was stunned once again. We've come here for Jun Moxie's master, and also for the sake of refining the sacred fruit. So, why does Big Sister care about Jun Moxie's marriage? It's a pity that I didn't see Jun Moxie's mysterious master from the beginning to the end. And, I thought that Jun Moxie would have asked his master for help because of this big disturbance. But, I didn't expect that the brat would have taken care of everything by himself. Qian Sun frowned. However, Jun Moxie's unscrupulous and lawless behavior has made me feel that he has an extremely powerful backer. And, this backer can't be shaken by anyone. Moreover, this backer will appear whenever he needs it. Therefore, I've come to the conclusion that Jun Moxie's backer is hiding in the Jun family. Qian Sun Serpent Queen gave a resolute conclusion. Then, she continued, therefore, I chose to chase after Jun Moxie. But, this brat is too formidable. I had chased after him from the aristocratic hall. But, he seemed to have sensed that I was following him. So, I lost track of him after a few turns. Snake King's face turned red, but, it was already quite late when I came out. So, I was planning to go back. But, I suddenly felt as if I was being followed halfway. And, this feeling was even more intense when I flew down from the city walls. However, the person who was following me was very strong. But, I believe that he doesn't have any evil intentions towards me. I can feel this. Qian Sun Serpent Queen lowered her brows and said in a dull tone. She had spoken for a long time, but hadn't heard any response. So, she couldn't help but look to her side in astonishment. She saw that her elder sister's face was expressionless. But, her beautiful eyes were flashing with a complicated light. She was fixedly looking at the ground, and it seemed as if she hadn't heard what she had said. Qian Sun Serpent Queen was very surprised. She followed her elder sister's gaze, but didn't see anything unsightly. So, she couldn't help but feel even more baffled. Elder sister, what are you thinking? Why is elder sister acting so strange today? Qian Sun, don't you think that we're not straightforward enough? What do you think would happen if we were to seriously injure or kill Jun Moxie? Mei Xuan looked ahead. It seemed as if she was talking to the air. Seriously injure him? Kill him? Qian Sun Serpent Queen jumped in fright. Elder sister, we mustn't do that. Let's not talk about the fact that our sacred fruit is still in the hands of that brat's master. And, we won't have any hope of finding him if we lose the restriction of Jun Moxie. Moreover, his master's strength is too frightening. Our Tian Fa is facing the pressure of the three holy lands. So, we can't afford to make such a strong enemy. You're right. Our Tian Fa is in troubled times. So, we can't afford to make too many strong enemies. But, we still need to make that Jun Moxie feel a strong pressure. A pressure that can threaten his life. Only then will he ask his master to come out. You should have thought of this, right? If Jun Moxie can solve everything by himself, then his master will never appear. Mei Xuan spoke very slowly. Mei Xuan's words were very reasonable. Her method was the most effective one at the moment. But, Qian Sun Serpent Queen felt that it was strange from the bottom of her heart. Elder sister will act strangely whenever Jun Moxie's name is mentioned. She'll either want to kill him or cripple him. And, she wants to exert pressure on him. Could it be that this brat has offended elder sister in the past? In fact, Qian Sun Serpent Queen could faintly feel that her elder sister's heart was fluctuating and her emotions were in turmoil whenever Jun Moxie was mentioned. But, she had used her tyrannical cultivation to forcefully suppress it. Moreover, all the strange ideas that had tormented Jun Moxie on the way back from Tian Fa had come from Mei Xuan. What's the purpose of this? Then, big sister, what kind of method should we use to create pressure for him? This pressure must be moderate. It won't work if it's too little. But, I'm afraid that it'll produce side effects if it's too much. After all, we need that mysterious expert's help. Qian Sun Serpent Queen cautiously asked. I'll take care of this. The Jun family will invite many guests and friends in a few days if I'm not wrong. They'll hold a grand banquet, and announce to the world that Jun Wui has adopted Guan Qinghan as his daughter. This is an opportunity. Moreover, Dugu Xiaoyi had entered the city with a big belly. So, I'm afraid that the marriage between the Jun and the Dugu family is urgent. And, they'll certainly hold a grand ceremony if the two families are to unite by marriage. In fact, it won't be a marriage. But, it'll be an engagement at the very least. This is also an opportunity. Mei Xuyan's beautiful face suddenly flashed with a trace of coldness. What if we let him have two beauties in his arms and enjoy the blessings of the world? Wouldn't that be too easy for him? How can there be such a thing in this world? Even if there is, that bastard shouldn't be able to enjoy it. Qian Sun Serpent Queen felt a sense of absurdity rising in her heart. What's going on? Our original intention was to find Jun Moxie's master with his help. We didn't want to become enemies with them. But, eldest sister's proposal is aimed at Jun Moxie's women. Does this make things difficult? Does it look like pressure? Why does it look like jealousy instead? However, she didn't want to say this out loud. In fact, she didn't dare to say it out loud. Little did she know that Mei Xuan was thinking, stinky brat, I haven't even settled my account with you in the Tian Fa forest. But, you want to marry a wife? In your dreams. Humph. See how I torture you this time. Go and prepare dinner. I'll sit here for a while. I'll be back soon. Mei Xuan looked at the sky and said calmly. Snake King stood up and hesitated. He wanted to say something but didn't. Finally, he floated away like a gust of wind. At this moment, she didn't feel like she was being followed anymore. After a long time, the mountain breeze blew gently. Mei Xuan suddenly said quietly, "You've been here for so long. You've heard our conversation for so long. It's enough for you. It's time for you to come out, right?" As she spoke, her eyes were still quietly looking at the sky. Her posture didn't change at all. Jun Moxie snorted coldly in his heart. "My yin-yang escape technique is unparalleled since ancient times. No one has ever been able to see through it. I won't fall for your trick. Do you think I'll come out just because you tell me to? Who do you think you are? Do you think you can discover me? Humph. I'll wait until you leave the roots of this tree. Then, I'll immediately fly away. You're lying to me. Just you wait." Jun Moxie finally confirmed that this white-clothed lady, Mei Xuan, who used to be delicate and timid in his eyes, was actually a Xian expert who was even more powerful than the Qian Sun Serpent Queen. Among all the experts that he had met, only the venerable Mei of the Tian Fa forest could be compared to Mei Xuan. In fact, they might not even be that much weaker. There was actually such a terrifying person in the Tian Fa forest. As such, he had to reevaluate the strength of the Tian Fa forest. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.